Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Just pay your babysitter. I just got money out of the ATM to pay our babysitter for tonight, and it reminded me of a story from back in the archives. Now, I'm one of 5 kids in my family. My sister, the second youngest of the lot of us, would babysit for extra money when she was younger. She had good clients that paid on time and bad clients that were always short on money and forgot to bring the right amount or conveniently forgot her rate. My sister got smart pretty quick, but those first few babysitting gigs showed her how crappy people can be. So my brothers and I had just been stiffed on payment for picking apples, and we were loudly complaining about it out in the barn. My sister hears us and joins in with her story. Apparently, one family owes her close to $200 in back pay. We all assume she's talking about one of the bad families and ask why she'd keep working for them if they don't pay up. But no, it's upstanding members of our community, the Smiths. Names changed to protect the guilty. Sister had been watching their hellions in town after school for almost a month, then riding her bike/getting the bus home, and they never seemed to have the full amount. But because they're a good family that goes to our church, she's been letting it slide and agreeing to more work with them with the promise that next time they'll have the full amount. Yeah, that never happens. I didn't know what the sunk cost fallacy was at the time, but that is what was going on here. Well, we're full of righteous indignation, having just been shorted ourselves, and we have a car, so we come up with a plan. My sister is scheduled to babysit for them for that upcoming Friday night after school until 10 p.m. This was unusual because they were strictly after school up until now, so we figured that it must be for something important. Part of the deal was that they would bring my sister home afterwards, but given the track record of shoddy promises, we didn't want to take this chance. My older brother stays at a friend's place so he can get to work in the morning, and my younger brother, sister, and I take the car to school. After school, we drive around to the Smiths. Sister jumps out, and we wait at the end of the driveway. She takes in her diary/ledger thing and tells the Smiths that she's sorry, but they are about $200 in arrears, and she can't babysit for them tonight until they're paid up in full. They aren't happy about it, but she sticks to her guns and walks out of the house. Mrs. Smith follows her outside and tells her that it's too late to back out of their agreement because they have a big night tonight. Mr. Smith is getting some kind of award and they need a babysitter. She can't believe my sister isn't acting like a good Christian by demanding all this money. Now, my brother has slept through more church than any person I know. I have no idea where he came up with this, but he belts out Romans 13:7, which is basically, pay what you owe. Mrs. Smith is doing that goldfish thing, where your mouth opens, but nothing comes out. I'm laughing. My sister is just giving her resting jerk face, and my brother is hitting her with more Bible verses about paying up. I remember the render to Caesar one, but I've forgotten the rest. Sorry. She goes back inside, and Mr. Smith comes out. He offers my sister some of the money that they owe and promises that they'll have the rest after his event that they have to leave for very soon. My sister takes the money, updates the diary/ledger, and says that we'll come back when he has the rest of the money. And that due to their track record, she would need tonight's money in advance. Mr. Smith turns to do the goldfish thing. We drive off and get some shakes at a place in town and drive back over 30 minutes later. We're met by 2 frantic Smiths that have the money ready to go. They hand it over. Sister turns off her resting jerk face and heads into the house. The Smiths, looking a bit worse for wear, dart off to their car and peel out in the drive like their lives depend on it. Aftermath. The Smiths did try and tell my parents that we were shakedown artists. My parents told them that they couldn't expect slave labor, but if the relationship was now soured, my sister wouldn't work for them anymore, and they could find a new sitter. This was about the time Bookface was starting to get big. Between my sister telling the other sitters about her experience and a Bookface group that named and shamed locals that didn't pay or shorted their sitters, it was a very interesting few years for the Smiths and some other families in our small town. Would you keep babysitting if the family wasn't paying you? If so, for how long? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got Entitled Mom threatens to call the cops on us for having legal fireworks. I never expected to run into an entitled mom, but this happened yesterday, 4 hours ago. Happy New Year. Our cast. We've got Entitled Mom, Crazy Kid, my friend, and me. So this evening at around 11 p.m., me and my friend were lighting fireworks at a grass field, so no one would be bothered by us. We were putting Thunder Kings upside down in their holders so they would explode on the ground instead of in the air, very loudly. There also was another kid in the grass field. He looked around 15. This is Crazy Kid, throwing around small white bags that would explode ridiculously hard. When we arrived at the grass field, we heard it the first time and we jumped. That's how loud it was. It was also clearly illegal. So we started setting off Thunder Kings, and Crazy Kid just starts throwing around those white bags. We decided to leave when one eventually landed around 5 meters away from us, which gave us a serious beep in our ears. We were walking back to my place, and Crazy Kid bikes past us, deliberately throwing another white bag literally a few meters away from us. We got away from it before it exploded, and we started shouting at the kid. He just biked away quickly. Me and my friend were really mad and kept walking to my place. Around 5 minutes later, we see Crazy Kid waiting for us on the sidewalk together with his mom, Entitled Mom. We were still so angry at him, so we walked up to him, and this is the conversation that followed. My friend: "Hey, don't ever throw fireworks at us again. Are you crazy?" Entitled Mom:
"Don't talk to him like that. He's my son. He would never do that to someone."
Me: "He threw fireworks right at us, and they are probably legal as well." Crazy Kid:
"I didn't do that. Go away, stupid little kids."
I'm almost 17, and my friend is 16.
"My son doesn't have illegal fireworks and would never try to hurt someone. He's a lovely kid. Leave him alone."
Me: "If he has no illegal fireworks, then what's in his bag?"
"That's none of your business. Go away, or I'm calling the police."
My friend: "What the heck are you calling the police for?"
"Don't talk that way in front of my kid."
Me: "Come on, let's just go."
"Oh, so now you're scared."
Me: "What do you mean?"
"Well, I said I would call the police, and you suddenly decide to leave. I want to bet you are the persons that have illegal fireworks, and you're trying to blame my son for it."
Crazy Kid:
"I think so too. They were lighting fireworks that were very loud."
At this point, my friend looked at me with a face that basically screamed, "Are you serious?" Me: "That's legal stuff."
"No, it's not. It's illegal. My son knows everything about fireworks, and he says they are illegal, so they must be."
My friend: "You are crazy."
"I'm going to call the police on you for having illegal fireworks. Stay right there."
Go ahead. We just waited to see how far she was going to go. Nothing to worry about if she did call the police, since the fireworks we had were illegal. She takes out her phone, and then Crazy Kid whispers something to her. Then they turned around to us.
"Okay, I am a reasonable person."
She actually said that.
"So, if you give me those fireworks you have, I'm not calling the police on you. Otherwise, I will call them."
Me: "No way. Let's go." We were walking away from Entitled Mom and Crazy Kid, and after we walked away from them like 10 meters, we heard Entitled Mom saying things like,
Is this the police?
And talking about how there were kids with illegal fireworks and stuff like that. She wasn't very convincing. She was clearly faking the phone call, probably to make us change our minds. My friend in a mocking voice.
Oh no, we should run before the cops come here.
We started laughing at Entitled Mom, and she wasn't happy about that.
Give me those fireworks now, or I'm really calling the police.
My friend. No, go away. We started walking away again, and of course, Entitled Mom didn't call the police. She just kept yelling at us, but we ignored it. We went to my place where we told what happened, and everyone laughed about the Entitled Mom fake calling the police. Next we've got Entitled Parent Calls a Call Center. So I decided to take 6 months off and get a job just while thinking and browsing my options. I couldn't get a job on my own, so my mother helped me get one in a family friend-owned call center. Since I was bilingual, I got a decently nice salary, and instead of dealing with people from my country, all my customers were from the United States, and all calls were in English. Lucky me, I was always told my English was decent and I did not have an accent. Okay, so I worked for a banking company in their credit card department. My department was the first line, and we had to deal with multiple procedures, some easy, some a mess. One of the procedures we had to deal with a lot was resetting people's passwords to access the online banking system. Now, the bank has different security requirements for different processes. The reset password was a high-risk procedure, and only the owner of the card is allowed to request it. Also, we needed to complete a verification using a security code sent to the owner's phone to verify their identity. So I was just at my desk in between calls, and a new call comes in. We've got me, and we've got Entitled Mom. Me. Thanks for calling Bank Credit Card Department. This is OP speaking. How may I help you today?
Hi, yes. I need to get into my account, but I can't seem to remember the password. Can you help me?
Of course. Could you please provide me with your card number?
Yes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay. Thanks. Please give me a moment while the system pulls up your card, and may I have your name, please?
Yes, it's Mrs. Karen, entitled.
I check my screen, and I see the card is under a Mr. John Good. Fake name, obviously. Now, in training, they remind us a lot of the importance of security, and a big red flag is someone trying to pass off as someone else. Me. Ma'am, I am very sorry, but your name is not the one in my system. Can you please confirm the card number again? Entitled Mom getting annoyed.
Yes, it's this.
Me. I am very sorry, ma'am, but this card is not in your name. Are you positive this card is yours?
No, it's not mine. It's my son's.
Said this very slowly to me, as if I was stupid. Ah, I see, ma'am. Unfortunately, the password reset needs to be done with the card owner on the line.
What? But I am his mother. I need to have access to his bank information.
I am terribly sorry, ma'am, but per bank policy, I can't give you your son's password or access to his account unless he calls in to authorize it. Will there be anything else I can help you with today?
Forget you, you jerk. I demand you let me in his account right this instant.
Now, by this point, I was used to dealing with some jerks on the job, and this wasn't even the worst. Me. Ma'am, this is a professional call. I'm giving you your first warning. If this behavior continues, I will be terminating this call.
You stupid jerk! Fine. In that case, I demand you give me all his card movements in the last month.
Now, some people add a secondary person on the card that does have access to this information, but Entitled Mom was not in there either. Me. Once again, ma'am, since you are not in the account, not even as an authorized user, I can't provide you with that information. I advise you to contact your son and tell him to call us to authorize us to provide you with information.
Forget you, you jerk! I will be contacting my lawyer, getting you fired for this.
And she hung up. Wow, I thought to myself, poor guy. I hope his mom at least treats him better than me. Next we've got Salty Lady tries taking my salt when she thinks I work for Safeway. Last week, I finally made up my mind to dress nice. Brown khakis and button-up shirt. Hair was a little unruly, but I managed to get it mostly under wraps. I'm also able to drive again after 5 weeks thus far out of surgery, so that's nice, and drove the 20 minutes to town to spend a Safeway gift card I got for Christmas. I go in and I had this compulsion for something salty, but without being soft. My taste buds wouldn't accept chips, crackers, or anything else that turns into mush. Then I see it. Heavenly Choir. Beef jerky. This stuff is so stupidly overpriced. $15 for a 230-gram bag? But I'm not spending out-of-pocket money, so it's all good. What else was I really going to use it on? I take 3 packages since the gift card was for $50, and I am in this almost primal sense of hunger, so I'm ignoring the world outside of this jerky. I look down, and I apparently grabbed a flavor variety. Ew. No, original or not at all. I put them back and start getting antsy. At this point, I'm basically tidying up the whole darn section, which is mismatched all to heck and back. If it's even hung up in the first place, and I just wanted to make it easier for me to find what I wanted. By the time I get it sorted and do find what I wanted and stand back up, I accidentally back up into a very irate lady. I jump ahead a little. Sorry, just a little ridiculous trying to get what a guy's gotta eat, eh? Yeah, no. She immediately blasts back.
Are you stoned on the job just because it's legal now? Trying to get your attention for 5 minutes now, but you ignored me because you have the munchies.
Then she's hollering to anyone who might overhear her that she needs the manager and rips my beef jerky out of my hands, continuing to berate me. I'm just more in shock at this moment, but I finally settle on a, "Okay, stupid, let's see where you take this," expression on my face. Not the manager, but one of the higher-ups, regardless, comes power walking down the aisle, and before she can even finish asking what the problem is, she's already being interrupted by Karen calling for me to be fired on the job, and generally being, a Karen. This supervisor is totally befuddled by what she's hearing and trying to make sense of it, and I finally tell Karen to shut up for 10 seconds. If you're even capable of being an adult that long. I tell her, look, long story short, I'm buying food, she thinks I'm an employee here, and I try to be dramatic and yank my jerky back, but she's got a death grip on it. And she's being a colossal entitled jerk who won't let me have the jerky I wanted to buy and had to root around for like an idiot. There were interjections while I told the employee this, but I'm not going to type out every interruption for the sake of reading comprehension. Ma'am, give him the food.
Why? So he can take it in the back and share it with your other employees?
He doesn't work here. Just because he's wearing sweatpants and a dirty t-shirt doesn't mean he works for us. Ah, yeah. I totally wasn't wearing that before I decided to clean up before leaving. Yeah.
Don't cover for him. He was putting everything away on that shelf.
You said he was looking for that stuff in your hands.
Yeah, I know. Idiot.
Which one is it then? Ah, never mind. I'm going to ask you to leave. You're making a scene and harassing other shoppers. Get out.
You fire him right now.
How Security! Karen, embarrassed, practically runs out of the store. I wish she tried and tripped. She was in heels. I am being petty with this thought, but I genuinely wish she had. She was still clenching my jerky when she tried leaving. At that point, when security grabbed her, they had to phone the police and added shoplifting to her other charges. I mean, I knew she'd be out in a few hours because we have a sickening revolving door criminal system in Canada for anything that isn't violent or white collar. But it still felt nice when she saw that I saw her in cuffs. No free jerky, no discount, and nobody even apologized I had to go through that with her. I expected as such, but I'm kinda mad now that I can't even look at the stuff without wanting to run to the bathroom again, being sick and all preventing me from enjoying the fruits of my ordeal. Next we've got Ring Me Up or Else. So a few years back, I worked for a company that would sell and repair retail and bank equipment. This ranged from ATMs to office printers. Our big retail items were cash registers and self-checkouts. As a technician, I would ride out to the store that opened a support ticket and never really had an offer or even a logo. Our uniform was really just a nice polo, khaki pants, and black boots. One of our biggest customers on the retail side was a superstore known for blue uniforms. I would spend entire days in these stores just working on cash registers. I also do my best to avoid wearing the usual colors for most store uniforms and opt for a black polo. I cannot count how many times people would approach me while I would be testing scanners and demand I ring up their stuff. One particular day, I needed a replacement motherboard on a register and had the parts laid on the belt next to me as I dusted things off and removed the case. An older couple who had been waiting in line sees me and decides that I am somehow about to open. The husband starts to shove my parts forward so he could begin stacking their stuff on the belt. Looking up, I kindly mentioned to the couple that, "I'm sorry, sir, this register isn't open," and gestured to all of the other pieces in front of me. His wife started to sigh.
We can see that, but you'll be done soon, so we can wait.
All while the husband is still stacking product on the belt. "No, I'm sorry, ma'am. I am repairing the register. I don't work for the store. I'm just a repairman." She still wasn't convinced, but I could see the husband at least realized that I wasn't in the usual employee uniform. The wife eventually took the hint after I repeated myself and dusted my shirt off to point it out further.
Well, if you can fix it, you can ring us up anyway. It's not like it's rocket science.
I'm trying to not get snarky with this couple, but I live for passive-aggressive softball. The thrill of pointing out someone's stupidity when they've given me an attitude is a glorious high. The husband, not wanting to lose his face, despite knowing that I was indeed a repairman and not a cashier, starts to get grumpy.
Why can't this store open more than 2 registers?
The wife started again.
Just hurry up and ring up our things.
I sigh and think some people are visual learners, so I remove my parts from the belt and place them at my feet, not back into their case. This leaves a noticeable emptiness in the station, as all that is left is dangling cables and the scanner. I proceed to grab the first item and try and scan it, and of course, no beeps sound and nothing happens. Now with my best customer service face. "I'm sorry, it doesn't look like the register is working." Not happy with my answer, they demanded I move them to another register. Sadly for them, I had 2 other tickets for that store, and the adjacent register needed a hand scanner. I walked over to the register with the item I had used before and keyed in the store's training mode, which lets me scan things as a mock purchase. Looks like a real transaction. I proceeded to use the scanner, and a sad, dying beep comes from it. Nothing was ringing up with it. The husband, now getting more furious, demands I use the scale scanner and try again. Seeing the opportunity to hit this one out of the park, I changed the quantity to 100 and scanned the item, a can of veggies, and the price appears on the little flagpole. The husband starts yelling again, and the wife moans.
None of the registers work.
Showing mild concern, I say, "I'm sorry. It looks like you have to wait in line for another cashier." At this point, the cashiers around me had witnessed the show and were trying not to laugh as they rang everyone else up. The lines had started to back up a bit more, and a manager opened one more lane. Unfortunately for my couple here, they didn't get to it in time to be first. While they waited, I replaced the hand scanner and did a few test purchases which worked just fine. So now I go back to my motherboard replacement, which the couple can now see the lane from behind us and how my tool bag and all the parts were settled in. They didn't go to the manager, thankfully. Not that it would have done much, as this store loved me. However, I could hear them complain to the cashier about the broken lanes, to which the cashier replied by singing my praises. I could see their faces turn red, and then they left. That job had so many moments like this, where it baffled me how people couldn't put clues together to see pieces scattered about. The ATM side was just as bad, especially drive-through/outdoor units. Can't count how many times I've been boxed in with angry customers waiting on me to move as I work. I could have huge dispenser units on the ground next to me, and they still wouldn't take the hint it was broken, eventually storming off and yelling at me. Entitled brother fakes illness to milk my parents of their retirement savings. So I grew up in a middle-class family in a low-income area. My dad built his dream house there, and even though they could afford to move, they never wanted to. My parents had a tendency to spoil my older brother far more than us, mostly because I was the quiet one who never spoke up. This resulted in my brother getting his way more often than me. Nothing blatant, but it was enough to give him an entitlement complex a mile wide. When my brother was a teenager, he struggled with some serious mental illnesses. These were absolutely legitimate and crippled his ability to function for several years. My parents were obviously very concerned for him, and so they willingly paid top dollar for the best psychiatrist and psychologist that they could find to help him. By the time I was ready to go to a different city to start university, my brother was at a stage where he was ready to go as well. It was decided that he would go to a university as the same city as me, and we would live together. My parents offered to pay for our rent all the way through university, so us flatting together obviously made a lot of financial sense for them. We would have to pay for everything else out of our student loans. Everything was set. We had found a good student flat, settled in, etc. He had a new care team in the new city. Awesome. Unfortunately, my brother had an episode on his first day that resulted in him not going to class. This meant he was removed from his program, compulsory first day, with the option of starting again in the second semester. Now, the obvious, logical, and sensible thing to do in that situation is for my brother to go home while I found a roommate to take the spare bedroom, and he could move back up and try again next semester. My brother didn't like that idea. You see, he always hated living at home. He would always whine about how old our house was or how poor our neighborhood looked. Our neighborhood was lovely, great sense of community, and I always loved it there. But he felt that he deserved better. Next thing we knew, his new psychologist has written a letter to my parents stating that it would be a good idea to allow him to stay living in the new city, to allow him to acclimate to his surroundings. My parents followed this advice and allowed him to stay. They replaced his weekly loan amount with an allowance of the same value and thought everything would move forward from there. This worked for a few weeks, but my brother started to hound my parents for more money. You see, he wasn't a student, so in his mind, why should he have to live like a student? No instant noodles and TV dinners for him. He wanted steak and lamb for dinner. He wanted to go to nice restaurants with his friends and go shopping whenever he felt like it. He wanted a new iPhone and a new MacBook because his was slow, etc. My parents eventually gave in and doubled his allowance. Second semester rolls around, and my brother hasn't even bothered enrolling. My parents weren't happy, but his psychologist writes him another letter, and so it continues. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm graduating with a job offer from my university in my field. The apartment is nice and convenient to my new job, so I continue to live there, only now I pay for my half of the rent and utilities. My brother is still not working or studying, and his allowance is now almost equal to my salary. Every time my parents try to force him home, his psychologist writes another letter, and my parents' trust in my brother's care team was high. They did save his life after all. By this point, my parents are just paying for his half of the utilities directly on top of his allowance. I suggested to my parents to get a second medical opinion, as he had been seeing this psychologist almost weekly for 3 years with no improvement, but my brother flat out refuses. He likes her. She speaks to his soul, whatever that means. About 1.5 years after I graduate, our landlord decides to sell the apartment and the new owners want to live there. Normal thing that happens, and I'm not bothered by this. I wanted to take the opportunity to get my own place. I have a serious girlfriend whom I want to eventually marry, so would like my own space that she could one day move into, and just generally move on with my adult life. But my parents don't want my brother living on his own just yet, and again, he is refusing to come home. They beg me to stay for just 1 more year while they figure out an arrangement for him. We got rather short notice to move, so I can understand this, and 1 more year won't matter too much to me. So apartment hunting we go. My brother goes fully off the entitlement deep end. He will only view apartments well outside of our price range. Anything within budget is either too old, or too small, or too dark, or too ugly. He wants a new, modern apartment in an expensive suburb in the heart of the city. His psychologist writes another letter outlining the importance of a comfortable environment for him. My parents cave once again and agree to rent his dream apartment for us, but I can't afford my half of the new rent. They compromise with me and I only have to pay the same rent as I was before, which is barely 1/3 of the rent at the new place, mind you. It's a beautiful apartment, so I was okay with the deal, even though I wasn't happy. Unfortunately, my brother is now used to getting everything he wants or needs. He starts asking me to pay for more and more of the groceries. Idiot me, thinking that mom and dad had cut down on his allowance now that the rent is so expensive, agreed to take up some of the slack. Big mistake. They were still giving him the same amount. He just wanted more. He starts asking me for more and more things and then whines to mom when I don't give it to him. My parents cave over and over again and get him whatever he wants. New computer, new MacBook, new iPhone, heck, even a car. Up until this point, my parents could afford all of this and somehow still save well for their retirement. My mom was completely honest with me about their finances, as when the time came, the power of attorney would transfer to me, so she wanted me to know where they stood. They were on track for a long, comfortable retirement, but then my dad unfortunately lost his job through very unusual circumstances. His company just disappeared, and his boss left the country. This messed my dad up for quite a while, and he decided it was time to kick back and enjoy an early retirement. He was only 2 years short of his retirement age anyway. My brother was furious. He would rage about how dad had betrayed him for not continuing to work to fund his lifestyle. He would regularly yell at my mom over the phone, saying that he expects them to continue to support him because he deserves the security of the lifestyle he has earned. I laughed my butt off at that line, which turned into another long fight, but was totally worth it. I knew that without dad's income, my parents couldn't afford the rent where we lived, so I decided to force the issue and moved into my own place. I had hoped that this would result in my brother moving as well, but alas, his psychologist wrote him another letter and he continued to live there. I moved on with my life, got married, went back to university, bought a house, grown-up stuff. 5 years go by, and I have virtually no contact with my brother. I'm visiting my parents one day, and when I take them out for lunch, my mom breaks down crying because she can't pay. It turns out that my brother had been blackmailing my parents to continue to support him, saying that if they didn't, he'd end up homeless and it would be their fault, etc. He still had the full support of his medical team, and my parents didn't know what to do. He had burned through nearly 20 years worth of retirement savings since I moved out. My parents were both forced to go back to work to try and stretch out their retirement savings. I decide to visit the psychologist myself, only to find out that she is one of those tell people what they want to hear so they keep giving me money, predatory type psychologists who was enabling my brother because he was a cash cow for her. Our entire family was furious. Turns out my brother had been recovered since his first year living away from home. He was perfectly able to work or study, he just didn't want to. And so she wrote him those bogus letters to let him get away with it. He decided to milk my parents of their savings to fund his lifestyle because he had earned it, and they owed him for not giving him what he wanted when he was younger. When confronted about it, he was entirely unapologetic. As far as he is concerned, he was entitled to everything he got and then some. It's been a few years since then, and my parents have completely cut him off. They are surviving, but within a few years, I will probably end up having to support them. I have no issue with this. I'm their son, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so, but it breaks my dad's heart knowing this. He grew up dirt poor and worked his butt off to provide for us, only to see it all disappear because of my selfish brother. The psychologist had her license suspended after my parents laid a complaint. I don't know if it was temporary or not, but I hope it was permanent. As for my brother, he works a dead-end retail job with a live-in boyfriend who pays for almost everything. He's still an entitled jerk, and I only see him during Christmas. I just want to emphasize, my brother had legitimate mental health issues, and I do not want to take away from that at all. He just chose to willfully deceive everyone about the severity in order to demand that everyone else give him the life he feels he deserves. And before you ask, no, his mental illness did not contribute towards this attitude. It's not that sort of illness. He's just an entitled jerk. Mother wants to use my art for free because she's my mother. Context. My mother is a narcissist, a boomer in every meaning of the word. I went to art school for a long time and have been trying to sell my work for a while. During my art school days, I went through a very successful phase of drawing watercolor animals that myself, my friends, and my teachers liked. They were a big hit, and I was very proud of each one I made. I made the mistake of showing a few to my mother after she nearly forced her way into my sketchbooks that I kept very private at the time. Her first reaction to a few key pieces was,
"This would look so cute on baby clothes."
at the time, I just thought, oh, I guess so. I had no intention on selling them on shirts. At best, I thought they would make good stickers since they are the right size for them. Fast forward to last year. Happy 2020. And suddenly, my mother is still dead set on making my designs into baby shirts. This is something she was very ambitious about, but I wanted no part in. She forced me to scan a select few of my work. The consequences at the time were very mean, but I can't be asked to remember what they were, and then used them to her heart's content. A few days later, I had a therapy session, and I talked about this to my therapist. She and I had come up with a plan that basically said, if you want any more of my designs, pay me first. My mother had told me that if she sold the shirts, that I would get $0 of profit because I
"Didn't put work into the process.
and it was,
Ridiculous for me to ask for any money for a doodle."
as per my therapist's suggestion, I started seriously looking into commission contracts. I had to sit down with my mom about what my therapist and I talked about, and she blew me off completely. I told her, either you sign a commission contract if you want any more of my work or if you want me to make new designs, or else you go pay for someone else to make your designs. Her response was very typical narcissist boomer behavior.
"Well, you're my child, and I let you go to art school, so you owe me for that."
Very important note, my school is a charter, meaning you didn't have to pay to go there. But my parents insisted that they paid thousands for my tuition, even though there was none, and I knew that there was no tuition. All you had to do was get past the 10% acceptance rate, pay for transportation and a few classes, and you were good. Anyway, time goes on, and my mother tries to sell her baby shirts with absolutely no luck. No one wants them. She tells her coworkers about the shirts, but no one has a use for them since she works in a building that is literally only people who are over the hill and who have grandchildren that are too big for her very limited designs. She resorts to giving them for free at any and every baby shower that she can get her grubby hands on, and each reaction is not great. I honestly would be surprised if the unfortunate recipients still have those shirts. Then the time comes around for her to ask for more. She misplaced the folder full of my forced scans, or I may have taken it away, who knows. And she comes crawling to me wanting more.
"I don't know what happened to my folder, so I want your sketchbooks so I can scan more. Also, make more art for me,"
she told me. Will you pay me for my work? I asked.
"I already told you no. Now, give me them and make more."
Will you give me any of the profit you make off the shirts?
"No, I've given up on selling them. Now they're only going to be gifts."
I then held firm on our previous discussion of commission contracts, thanks therapist, and told her that I'm going to refuse to give her a single piece without payment. My pieces take a lot of time to make, and I'm already in school, so you're asking me to work this into my already busy schedule? I'm not moving on this. Her response, a hissy fit. She can't believe that her kid is asking to be paid for their work. So she resorts to the worst alternative.
"Fine then. I'll just get images off Google and sell those since you're being unfairly rude to me."
I try to tell her that is, in fact, illegal, but she won't listen. She's too hurt by her unfair child to listen to the law. To this day, she has not found a single baby shower to lug her stolen designs to and force upon the unlucky mother-to-be. She has completely given up on her goal to sell those, and our shirt press has a fine cake of dust on it now. She blames her failure on me and refuses to support any more of my art accomplishments because I was mean to her for not letting her steal my heart. I don't feel bad at all. Next we've got, would you like some cheese with your wine? I am a federal government employee who had just finished a successful business trip. I was flying home and had a layover in a large international airport. I had a long layover and had gotten a bite to eat and had gotten no notifications about my gate being moved from one airport to the other. I and several other unlucky passengers had gone to the original gate and sat wondering where the plane was at as it was time to board. Finally, we find an employee who tells us the gate was changed and it's now boarding and set to take off in 8 minutes. We all take off sprinting for the correct gate. For the record, I am a 55-year-old woman who does actually run 10K races, so I wasn't doing too badly at this. I get to the correct gate and tried to pull up my boarding pass on my phone. It wouldn't work. I made a few more attempts to pull it up, but it didn't work. The gate clerk asked me to wait and she would print one up. I was the last to board the plane, but I made the flight. It should be smooth sailing from here. Boy, was I wrong. This was a small commuter jet with 2 seats on one side and 1 on the other. My seat was towards the rear of the plane on the single seat side. I walked down the aisle and encountered a rather rotund, angry man. His leg was sticking out in the aisle, and I didn't see it as I had my carry-on bag in front of me. I bumped his leg. Me. Well, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your leg. Angry man.
You should be sorry. Watch where the heck you're going from now on.
Me. I apologize again, but could you please move your leg so I can get to my seat? He scowls at me, but moves his leg. I place my bag under the seat and buckle my belt. After about 15 minutes, we still have not left the gate. The passengers are starting to wonder why. The pilot comes on and tells us that there will be a delay as the plane still needs fuel and no fuel trucks were available at that time. It would be a 30-minute wait. Angry man.
What the heck? Is everyone here so darn stupid that they can't fuel a plane?
Flight attendant. Sir, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but
I don't give a hoot how sorry you are. This is outrageous.
He says something unintelligible. After 45 minutes, we finally get fuel. The plane should have departed an hour and a half ago. It's now almost 10 p.m. A few rows ahead of me was an apparently non-English speaking couple in front of me with their 3-year-old grandson with them. The boy was getting tired and frustrated. He started crying, but he was in his seat, so the plane left the gate. We had been away from the gate less than a minute, and he decided to throw a tantrum. He undid his belt and jumped over the grandma and into the aisle and starts to run down the aisle. The attendant sees the lad and notifies the pilot. The plane stops on the tarmac. Grandma catches the kid and puts him back in his seat with his belt on, which he immediately undoes again and runs screaming up and down the aisle. Grandpa catches him this time and returns him to his seat and puts the belt back on him. He's still screaming and crying, but he's seated. We start moving again for about 2 more minutes when this kid's head pops up over his seat. The attendant calls the pilot again and the pilot stops. The angry man is saying many things that I cannot put in this narrative. Grandma gets him again and goes back to the seat, but puts him in her lap. The attendant tries to explain that this is not allowed, but she doesn't understand. Neither does Grandpa. The attendant asks if anyone can communicate with this couple. A few try, but they don't seem to understand. The pilot decides to remove this family from the plane, so back to the gate we go. We wait about 25 minutes for a representative from the airline to come and remove this family. The representative comes to remove the family, and all of a sudden, Grandpa gets up and yells,
What do you mean we have to get off this plane? I paid good money for this flight.
Obviously, no problem with English. The family was removed, and we finally got on our way. It's now 11:45, 15 minutes after the plane was originally stated to land, and it was a 3-hour flight. The attendant began the drink service for the flight after about 30 minutes. Once again, the angry man's leg was in the aisle. The poor, frazzled attendant accidentally bumps his leg. Angry man.
What the heck is wrong with you? This whole dang trip has been a total pile of horse crap. I want your name and your manager's name, etc.
Attendant. My name is Attendant, and you can call this number in the morning, but I still need to finish the drink service in the back. Could you please move your leg so I can get by? Angry Man moves his leg but keeps grumbling. He stands up in the aisle.
I'm not finished talking to you yet.
Starts to move down the aisle. Me, I jump into the aisle. I'm tired of this obnoxious fool. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Who the heck are you?
The person sitting behind you. I just wanted to let you know that you missed a perfect opportunity back there.
What do you mean?
You should have asked the attendant for some cheese.
Cheese? Why would I want that?
To go with the wine you've been having since you got on this plane. Everyone within earshot is now laughing hysterically. Angry Man, his face turning red with anger.
I want to know your name. I want to report you to the airlines.
Me, in a voice just above a whisper. Sir, I work for the federal government. You really don't want to know my name, but I would love to know yours. I smile very nicely. The angry man's face loses all color, and he scurries back to his seat and sits down quietly. He politely addressed the attendant as ma'am for the rest of the flight. After we landed and we were getting off of the plane, the attendant thanked me for what I did, but wanted to know what I told him. I winked at her and told her to have a better day tomorrow. Next we've got Entitled Mother Tries to Steal Meat and Candy from Store. So, some backstory for this. I am currently working in a large grocery store chain. I am not that old, 16, and usually just sit as a cashier because I am so young at my job. I work a lot because I have a lot of free time, so I experience more absurd things than my fellow young workers, which only work in the weekends. This grocery store in particular in my city is also known for theft, so a lot of people steal from it, so we have locks for a lot of things in there to keep them away. I was sitting as the cashier, and had been for the last 2 hours, and I hear the entrance alarm go off, which it does pretty often due to it being a little defective, and we were waiting for a repairman, and it is a mother and her little kid. Let's call them Karen and Entitled Daughter. Entitled Daughter puts her hands on her ears to cover the noise out, and my manager rushes over to turn them off and calm them down, explaining why it happened. My manager told us over a communication headset we all have on that they were pretty angry and that we had traumatized her little kid, and my manager just apologized and kept on going with his day. Another alarm goes off, and this time it's a different one. It's the expensive meat alarm, which goes off when someone tries to open the container where all our expensive meat is stored. I was close by, and I walked over to see Karen and Entitled Kid again. I smiled on my way over just to be polite, and I asked Karen what the problem was since she looked angry. Karen.
This is the second time you guys have traumatized my little baby over stupid things. And I just wanted some ribeye steak and get on with my day.
I said back that she needs to call an employer to open it, or else an alarm will go off again while trying to calm them down. I opened the container, and they took a lot longer than expected to pick their meat, and I said to them, since I had to get back to my duties, I really need to get back to my duties, so if you would hurry up, I would appreciate it a lot. Then she replied with a look that kind of said,
Mind your own business,
and kind of scared me. After 7 minutes or so, she then says,
Never mind, I don't want it anyways.
And then, just when I'm about to close the container again, she quickly grabs the ribeye and tries to hide it in her purse. I say to her, Ma'am, you need to put that back unless you want it.
What are you talking about?
I saw you taking a ribeye steak when I was closing the container.
Are you accusing me of stealing?
No, not as of right now because you haven't stolen anything yet.
Just leave me!
She yells that, by the way. I tell my manager about this, and he says that if any more problems come up with them, just let him know. So I go back to the cashier post and start beeping items through and getting more and more customers. All is actually going quite fine until I see Karen and Entitled Daughter step up. They've put their items on the conveyor and get up to the checkout, and I start beeping their items out, and I don't see that ribeye steak they took. I ask Karen nicely if I can have a look in her bag, as I have a right to do that if I think she is stealing, and this is how that goes. Me. I unfortunately have a suspicion that you are stealing, so I would like it if I could please have a look in your bag.
I am not stealing. We have been over this. I didn't take any ribeye steak,
she says in complete denial. Ma'am, either you let me have a look in your bag, or I will have to call my manager and have you stay put here in the store until we have all this sorted out.
Fine. Call your manager so he can see how stupid you are.
I then call my manager and he comes straight down and starts talking with Karen as I stand right next to him because I need to be involved. Manager: Ma'am, as a manager in this store, I have a right to get a look in your bag if one of my coworkers thinks you're stealing. Karen, shouting:
You have absolutely no right to do this. And the fact you even have the audacity to speak to me like that after you've traumatized my poor baby twice with your stupid alarms, that is so cruel.
I then notice that entitled daughter has sneaked behind me and walked over to the candy by the checkout and eaten some. I walk over and kneel down and say that she needs to go over to her mother and that her mother needs to pay for the candy she had eaten. Without me knowing, Karen had rushed over to me and in an instant grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back from entitled daughter. Entitled daughter then starts crying so loud that my ears begin to ring. Meanwhile, all that happened and Karen shouting right in my face, my manager called the police and they had arrived. One of the two policemen who arrived rushed over to Karen, holding her back from me as they could clearly see she was threatening me, and the other started calming entitled daughter down. My manager explained it all and showed them the footage, and Karen got arrested. I don't know her sentence though. Entitled mom steals my headphones while I have an outburst thanks to my mental disease. So, some backstory. When I was 5 years old, I tripped over and fell off the stairs and damaged my brain. I got this condition called PBA, and it's a disease that makes a person get uncontrollable bursts of laughter and or crying, most of the times when you feel a sudden change in emotion, but it can also just happen at random. I mostly have crying outbursts. The condition wasn't really known until the Joker 2019 movie released, where Arthur Fleck has the condition. Most people start thinking I am faking it because I want to look cool. When I was younger, my parents always had to drive me to school, but now I'm older. I don't want to say my age, but I'm a teenager. I can control my outbursts better. I can't cycle to school though, because if I get an outburst on my bike, I can trip over and hurt myself and or others. Also, my school is pretty far away, and I wouldn't even like to cycle so long every day. So I always take the train, around a 20-minute train ride. To control my outbursts, I listen to music. It makes me feel relaxed, and most of the times, I don't get any outbursts. But sometimes, my phone's battery is low, and I can't let it die, because if something happens to me, I need to call my parents, and it's hard to ask someone for their phone while laughing or crying. Anyway, enough backstory. That was way longer than I thought. Let's start with the real story. This is what I remember. Me sits in train listening to music. Entitled mom steps into train and sits behind me. Me listens to my music. I get taken away by the music, so I accidentally start singing louder and louder. People in the train start looking at me, and when I realize what I'm doing, I apologized and stopped singing. Entitled mom:
Hey, you had a nice voice. What song were you singing?
I think she was trying to sound like a nice person. I don't know why she started so nice. Me looks up. Oh, hi, thanks. The song was Feel It Still. It's my favorite song ever, and always have it on a 1-hour loop.
I'll look it up.
Thanks. No problem. A few minutes pass, nothing happens. Entitled mom:
Hey, can I ask you something?
Yeah, sure. Just make it quick. I need to get out soon.
Where did you get those headphones? My son would really like them.
I bought them online. Insert website from my country.
Thanks again.
No problem. Again. I was thinking, such a nice lady. Oh boy, was I wrong. I arrive at my stop and get off the train. Go to school. Nothing important happened. School in a nutshell. I get back to the station after school and am waiting for my train when I notice the entitled mom. I found it strange because she was still sitting on the train when I got out, but now she was waiting at my stop. I didn't really care about it though and just waited for my train. However, my phone gave me a notification that its battery was low, so I unplugged my headphones and just hoped I didn't get an outburst. Entitled Mom noticed me and walks towards me.
Hello, do you remember me? The woman on the train earlier today.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I remember you. I'm pretty confused why she is even talking to me.
Where are your headphones?
I wasn't really trusting her. None of your business.
Come on, show me them.
Why?
I looked them up online, and they are really expensive, so I wanted to look at yours. I have been waiting all day here.
Me. Now I realized she's basically a psycho. If you want to look at them, search it up online again. After what felt like hours, finally my train arrived, and I didn't say a word to the lady and just left her and went into the train, searched my seat, and hoped this would be the end. But no, she follows me.
Just let me look at them, now!
Stop harassing me, lady. My conscience said I was gonna get an outburst. Please stop!
Just for a split second.
No! My breaking point. I get a laughing burst this time.
Why are you laughing?
I can't stop laughing. People start looking at me.
Stop, idiot. Just give me the darn headphones.
I actually can't stop, and I feel like I'm choking. It's something that happens often. I get the feeling I can't breathe because of the sudden outburst. Leave me, please! I start crying now. Some people walked to another cabin, which really made me angry, honestly, but also understandable, as they didn't know about my condition and probably thought I was crazy, like everyone else.
Are they in your bag? Answer me right now.
I have a mental disease. Please. Crying continues. Then the entitled mom grabs my bag and opens it. My books were lying all over the place. My laptop screen got cracked, and my calculator broke after being launched against the wall. She finally finds my headphones. I press the alarm button for security to come. An officer rushes inside the cabin. He saw me crying, and a woman with headphones in her hands and books all over the floor. I think he realized what happened. Officer. What has happened here? Me. Can't stop because I keep crying. Entitled Mom.
This boy stole my bag. Luckily, I could hold on to my headphones.
Me. All I could do was shake no with my head. Officer. I don't believe that stuff is yours, ma'am. It's all school books. Me. I grabbed one of my books and threw them at the police agent. It said my name on the cover, a male name, and the officer instantly understood. He was looking confused, though, why I kept crying. Entitled Mom tried to make a run for it. Officer tackles her, cuffs her around one of the poles in the train, making her unable to leave. You can stop crying, young man. Can you tell me what happened? Me. Still couldn't speak and started laughing again. Are you okay? Me. I made with my hands a sign that the officer should wait a bit, like this emoji, and grabbed my phone, called my dad, and he heard me laughing. I gave the officer my phone, and my dad explained it to him. Officer. I see. Well, kid, your dad is on his way to the next station. Why don't you just sit in the next cabin and try to calm down? Entitled Mom was screaming the whole time and calling me and the officer bad names. Minutes pass. I managed to calm down by just using my last 4% battery on my phone to listen to my song, knowing my dad was just waiting at the next stop. We finally arrive, and my dad decided to press charges against the woman. Anyway, my dad told me she got taken away for stealing, lying to higher authorities, and harassment. I honestly didn't know why I wanted to share this. I get outbursts for just thinking about this. Also, the reason this costs me like 45 minutes to type, I guess I did it to let people think more about PBA or just any other mental disease. Thank you for reading this whole thing. If you made it to here, say turtle or turtle emoji, because I love turtles. Next we've got that time we had to call the cops. So, at the time I was working in a place that sells undergarments for both men and women. Men's was actually our best-selling department. The most important fact to know in this story is that boxers cost more than boxer briefs. Moving right along. You know how customers just love to pick things up and abandon them in the wrong place? Well, this time that ended up with a butterfly effect in which we needed to call the police and get security escorts to our cars at the end of the night due to an absolutely psychotic man not getting his way. We had both a wall lined with products for men, as well as a couple bins in the men's section for excess stock for customers to take what they needed. One of these bins contained briefs. I'm sure you all know where this is going. A large, red-headed man, like at least 6 feet tall and 250 pounds, muscular, walks up to coworker's register with a pack of boxers and a pack of socks to get our buy one, get one 50% off promotion. This is Crazy Man. Coworker, who's a little old lady by the way, rings up his items and tells him his total. I'm on the register next to her, and it was a busy weekend day, so I can hear all of this. Not that I'll need to be that close. Crazy Man starts flipping out. Crazy Man.
Why is it so expensive? I didn't pick anything up that expensive.
Coworker. Well, the socks cost this much, and the boxers cost this much. So with the sale, that's what the total comes to.
No, the boxers cost less than that. I read the sign. They definitely cost less.
Would you mind showing me where you picked these up, sir? Crazy Man brings her over to the bin. Coworker. I'm sorry, sir. It looks like another customer put these in the wrong spot, pointing to where the boxes are on the wall. They're actually this much. My manager was in the men's section and stopped what she was doing to listen in. Crazy Man.
Well, you had them in the wrong place, so you have to honor that price.
Sir, I don't have control of where other customers leave things. There are no other boxers in this bin. They cost this much. If it was an error on our part, I would honor it, but it isn't.
You need to honor the price.
No, sir. I can remove the item if you aren't interested.
Are you stupid? You need to do what I said.
Manager intervenes. Manager. Excuse me, sir. What seems to be the problem?
I found boxers here in this bin, and your employee won't honor the price.
I'm sorry, sir, but it looks like a customer put them there. We cannot give you the boxers for the price of the briefs.
I have never been in a store that treats customers like this. You need to give me them at that price because that's where I found them.
Sir, I do not have the authority to change the prices. At this point, literally the entire store has stopped and is staring at a distance at this enraged linebacker of a man screaming.
Yes, you do. You can change the price. Do it now.
I can't do that, sir.
I ought to punch you in your smart mouth.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
No! You're gonna give me my boxers.
He has his finger in her face.
At the lower price, not your rip-off price.
At this point, I left to call security, and apparently a couple of people had called police after the man threatened my manager. He's still screaming, but I can't tell what he's saying. The police department is only a few minutes down the street from the store, so by the time I was finished with security, the police were in the store and escorting the man who was still raging out. Security arrives maybe 5 minutes later and ended up escorting me and my manager to our cars after closing later, as people reported that he was threatening us all. In case you were wondering, this was all over $2.50. Next we've got, They Want My Money? Oops. Backstory. In WW2, my Uncle Haj was an engineer with the RAF. He rapidly climbed the ranks and ended up being the head engineer at a local base. After the war, he met his wife of 45 years, Eve. It was the typical post-war relationship, without children though due to complications. He quickly found a job at our village coal mine, known locally as The Pit. He went from engineer to foreman very quickly. The man had a knack for leadership, that's for sure. He and Eve, some of his RAF buddies, and his sister, my grandmother, often went to Spain for holidays, at least once a year before they all retired. After that, whenever they felt like it. The family. The unfortunate truth is that family isn't always nice. My grandmother was his only surviving direct family. Eve, on the other hand, had a large family. Very large. The trouble with large families is that often there's a few bad eggs. In this case, it was quicker to count the good ones. As Hodge would put it, the trouble with eggs is you can only tell the good ones by spinning them quick or dunking them in water. I don't fancy going to prison. More often than not, Eve's family would drop by and ask to borrow money. Not from Eve, she had none. Hodge had always been industrious, saving as much as he could and only really spending what he had to, other than the holidays, of course. The incident. When I hit 18, he took me for my first beer. As my dad worked nights and had to sleep, he didn't drink, which was uncommon for him, as he was a regular at the working men's club we were in. Me. Haj, how come you're not drinking? I can't in good conscience test your money without your getting a sniff. Haj. Well, I suppose one can't hurt. Don't tell Nip. His name for my grandmother, Sheila. But I've just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2. Don't want to take any chances. Me. I'll keep your secret, but you need to tell her, just on the off chance. Haj. I'll tell her in good time, kiddo. Now get it down you before it goes flat. Neither of us took much notice to the people around us, so we didn't notice Eve's nephew in the corner. 5 years pass. I've seen him a few times, less than I'd like, because of work and him going overseas. The build-up. I visited my grandparents one day to find my grandmother sobbing, with Haj sat on the sofa. Haj. Put the kettle on, kid. I need to tell you something. I made a coffee for Gran and Granddad, hot chocolate for me, and green tea for Haj. Haj. Now listen up. I've not got long on this wretched planet, but you're not going to cry over me. I've been diagnosed with late-stage cancer, and couldn't be happier to be leaving. To Gran. Sorry, Nip. I know you don't want to hear this, but it has to be said. You and yours will be looked after, of course, but you're not to tell Eve and her family. To everyone. I've made up a new will. I want everyone to go to the reading. I've prepared a little gift for the family. Shortly after this chat, we found out he passed away. We kept it from my grandmother that he had taken his own life and destroy her. Let it be said that Haj was always a man independent of others. He made his choice, so Gran wouldn't suffer seeing him deteriorate over time. The revenge. We went to the reading as a family like he asked. It's the only thing he ever asked of us. We had seen people we never met, never even heard of, so of course, there were some sullen scowls across the table. Lawyer. Now that we're all here, please watch this video. Haj has a message for you all. Haj from beyond. Now then, I imagine this will be a shock to most of you, but I had cancer. If you're watching this, I want you to know that some of you made my last few years pleasant. Others, well, we'll get to you. To my side of the family. Not one of you came to me asking if I was all right or wanted anything doing. Instead, you asked if I wanted a hand with anything. For this, I thank you. I've never had anyone do anything for me unless they were my underlings in the RAF, and I didn't aim to start when I found out I was on my way out. You knew me better than most of my close family. I'll tell you if something's wrong. Good on you. Now then, let's get to the good bit. To Eve's family. You lot. Where do I begin? When I took our Nip's grandson out for his first pint, apparently the walls have ears, and one of you overheard me tell him I had diabetes. Shame you had to say. It's a shame it wasn't cancer. Guess you got your wish, eh? The rest of you. Whenever you visited me, you asked more often than not if you could borrow money. It's fine. I didn't mind lending it to you, but I did expect to get it back. So, here's how this is going to work. I've split my money and put it in trust with my oldest friend, the lawyer. Nobody is getting a thing till Eve pops her clogs, so don't bother asking. Eve can stay in the house I worked my butt off for until she either dies or has to go into care for any reason. The house is not to be sold until after she dies. Lazy as she is, she's still my wife. Once she dies, the house is to be sold at a reasonable price to the next owners, and the money from that is to be added to the total of my finances and split with the family. Eve is on her own, and she can do with it what she wants, other than add it to my total. Lawyer has been left instructions on this. Now here's how it'll be split. If you've borrowed money from me and paid it back, you'll get a fair share based on your age at the time of my passing. If you haven't repaid the money you borrowed, you'll still get a cut, minus what you owe me. For some of you, I hope you know I'm laughing at your squirming from beyond the grave. Deserves you right. Nip, my only living family. You'll get the lion's share of whatever is there, to be done with what you will. If you're not wanting to keep it, lawyer has been paid for any services you may require. Trust him, he's a good lad and saved my butt on more than one occasion in the war. Nip's sons, you will get a decent chunk to help with whatever you need. and your children will be provided for as well. To my mom, not once have I heard anything bad about you. You're getting a cut too. Like it or lump it. OP, you've been a great help the last couple of weeks. I called you unfairly at 3 a.m. to help me out of the bath after finally giving up getting myself out. Sorry you had to see that. You didn't have to help the next day with the decorating either. If you weren't already on your career path, you'd make a fine tradesman. You will receive a cut to be determined by the near future's events. Use it how you will. To the rest of you, I'm utterly disgusted to have known you. I mentioned earlier that Eve can live in the house till she passes or is put into residential care. If either of these happens, nobody is to live in the house. I don't want anyone I don't trust in there. Now quit your crying and go about your lives. Haj. As you can imagine, people kicked up a stink about this. We nodded to the lawyer and left. Shortly after the funeral, Eve went into a retirement home with her own money. Haj's was locked up as per his request. She had more than enough to keep her afloat for many more years. A couple of months down the line, we all got called back to the lawyer's office. A little bemused. Again, we're directed to watch a video. Haj. I'm not surprised that this video has been played. Some of you just didn't follow my orders. If you're watching this, it means that someone I don't trust was found to be living in my house. I don't give a hoot who it is. Lawyer has instructions of what to do next. But for the sake of his voice and sanity, whoever was found in the house against my wishes is now stricken from the will entirely. If the others feel they want to share their money with you, that's their loss. You'll not get a penny from me. As it turns out, my cousin, who bullied me in school, and her family, as in her on and off boyfriend, 2 kids, and a dog, had moved into the house after convincing Eve to move out because they needed the house. What they hadn't counted on is nosy neighbors. Haj asked them to watch the house, and if they saw anyone new in there or any signs of moving, to report it to the lawyer for updates. In return, they'd get a cut of the money he had. They're good people. The lesson: don't mess with a war vet. My mom demanded to read my journal whenever she wanted. Hey guys, I remembered another story from our cult that involved entitlement. We were always taught that privacy was the devil's playground, so things like having your own room, locking, or even shutting a door, unless you were preserving modesty, was not allowed. In congruence with that thought process, we were not allowed to have diaries. We could only have journals. The difference was explained as, a diary is selfish and vain and encourages secret sins. A journal is meant to record how God is working in your life and edify other people who read it. It was a standing rule in our house that my mom could read our journals whenever she wanted and talk to whoever she wanted about what she found there. When I would ask her not to tell people what she read, she said what she always said: if you don't want people to know what you did, don't do it. Then, 1 year later, I was volunteering at a summer camp in another state, and I was having a really hard time. I was one of only 5 people in the kitchen cooking for the entire ranch, and we were working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., and grudgingly allowed a 5-minute lunch break to inhale some food after everyone else had been served before we had to get back to work again. After 2 weeks, everything hurt and I was exhausted. But I couldn't show it because everyone had a mentality of being rough and tough and muscling your way through life. I stopped guarding my feelings in my journal. My mom wasn't there to read it, after all, so I wrote freely about how much I hated it there and how much I wished I could just go home. It was my one comfort, and those pages are still warped from how much I cried on them. Then one day, I was on the phone with my mom and she said, "Go get your journal and read to me what you've written so far." I panicked and asked if I had to, and she said, "Are you keeping secrets?" "No." "Then you have nothing to hide." So I read all the stuff I had carelessly written down. I knew if I didn't read exactly what I had written, she would check it later and I would be in trouble. It went well though. She said I had to stay there because it was where God had sent me and I had things to learn. But she didn't get mad or lecture me, and I thought it was all okay. The next week, a boy from my home church came up to me and said, "OP, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I was confused because time had passed and I had forgotten about that phone call. He said he read the newsletter one of the moms back home sent us, and it had a special note to encourage me. Everyone got this newsletter from her. It always had a Bible verse for each of us in it, but that week, mine had a note attached about seeking God's strength and how she and everyone else was praying for me during this difficult time. Everyone got this newsletter. Now, everyone knew I was unhappy and wanted to leave. Humiliated, I called my mom again and cried on the phone about how she could share that sensitive information I gave her. She acted shocked and said,
Well, you didn't say not to tell anyone.
I said, did I really have to tell you that I didn't want just anyone to know that stuff? Did you really think I would be okay with everyone on the ranch knowing what I wrote in my journal?
Well, how was I supposed to know the other mom would put it in the newsletter?
That's just it though. You don't know what other people will say, so you are supposed to keep sensitive information to yourself, especially as my mother.
As your mother, it is my job to seek counsel for you so you can know God's will for your life. You don't get to decide where God's counsel will come from.
I just sighed. I wasn't going to win this argument, and the damage was already done. I just said, so if I ask you to keep something a secret, you will do it?
If you say, Mom, I need you to keep this between us, then yes, I will.
I accepted that as the best I could get. The next week, the newsletter came out, and I read under my Bible verse,
OP, I sent you your own letter.
Not again. This time, I got an extra letter apologizing to me for what had happened last time. I appreciated that she was trying to make it right, but in reality, it just felt like this whole thing was repeating itself all over again. Everyone read my encouraging note from last time, read that I was being sent my own letter this time, then watched me be handed my own letter. I just shut off all emotions and became a robot until I was transferred out of the kitchen. I stopped writing in my journal except to take notes in church. And no, my mom did not keep secrets between us after that. Edit. I recently had a heart-to-heart with my dad about all the things that happened to me growing up, and he was completely unaware of this. He said, she was censoring you in the one place you were supposed to be free to express yourself without fear. He was angry, and yes, they've been divorced for about 2 years. Do you think that parents ever have a right to look in their kids' journals? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got, let my kid use your expensive art supplies. I'm an artist by hobby, and being a student, I have always loved to draw, and it's the one thing that kept me going throughout my life. I decided to take my art seriously when I was around 15 and started seriously investing my money and time into making that happen. I am now 20 years old and study comics and graphic novels at my university because I want to do this professionally and because I have a genuine passion for it. I have invested money and also gotten gifted with some pretty expensive art supplies, such as sketchbooks, pencils, pens. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with Copic markers. If not, they are alcohol-based markers for coloring that a lot of professional artists use for comics, animation, and the like. I own quite a few of these and have used them to the point where they are starting to run out, and I need to buy refills, but these are also quite expensive. So I'm trying to preserve my markers as much as possible until I can afford to buy more or refills. Onto the story. Of course, we've got Entitled Mom, we've got Entitled Kid, and me. So I don't leave the house much when I'm drawing, but on this occasion, I felt like being out of the house and decided to go to my local cafe. I ordered a coffee, sat down, and brought out my art supplies. I tend not to leave the house with my markers, but today was the rare occasion where I felt like bringing them with me and brought out the plastic box I kept them in. I was drawing and drinking my coffee while minding my own business, while other customers minded theirs, until a mom and her, I want to assume was, 7-year-old boy. I could tell they were going to be a bit of a nuisance when they walked in because her kid was very loud. I know kids tend to be loud. I had a bit of trouble controlling my volume as a kid, still do sometimes. But the energy I got from this kid was bratty and annoying, and of course, The mom didn't seem to care at all. They went to order and sat by a table near me. I had my head kept down and occasionally looked up to have a sip of my drink where I noticed the little kid was staring at me. No big deal. Bright colors attract people, especially kids, so I can see why he would be looking at my box of markers. I'm a very extroverted and social person, so I have no issue initiating contact with people, so I gave him a quick smile and went straight back to work. After a few moments, though, I could hear footsteps coming towards me, and when I looked, the same boy was by my table looking over my sketchbook and art supplies. Entitled Kid.
What's that?
That's my sketchbook. I'm drawing right now. I look up at the entitled mom and give her a smile. She gives one back. I first assume it's just a curious kid wanting to chat.
What are those?
He says, pointing to my markers. These are markers. I use them to color in my pictures. I notice his eyes light up as he leans closer on the table.
Can I borrow some?
Sorry, I can't do that. These are really expensive markers, not for kids.
That's not fair.
He was raising his voice at this point, catching his mom's attention. They're not regular coloring markers. They're for adults. At this point, the mom comes over to get her son.
What's going on? She won't let me use her markers.
And why not? I'm sorry. These aren't regular coloring markers. They're for professional artists. You see, I spent a lot of time saving up for these, and I don't even use them that often myself. I hope you understand.
For professionals? Don't be stupid. They're markers, for God's sake.
They are. Animators and cartoonists use these. I'm an art student. Entitled Kid.
I draw cartoons.
He tries to grab them before I pull them away from him, giving him a warning look. Me. I can't let these go to waste on a kid. They are for professionals only. Entitled Mom.
Very high and mighty of yourself to call yourself a professional.
Me. Well, technically, I am. I am studying to be a professional artist and have also made commission from my artwork before.
I just don't understand how art things can be for professionals.
She did air quotes with her hands.
It's all the same.
It really isn't. They're better quality than, say, Crayola. She started to get visibly annoyed at this point and tried to get in my face.
Just let my son use your markers.
No, they're way too expensive. I'm sorry, but I really can't. She starts to grab them, and immediately, I grab a hold of them as well. We start to have a tug of war over the box when the force of both of us makes the box flip out of our hands and markers spill all over the floor.
Great, now look what you've done.
You should have just accepted that I didn't want to give strangers my personal items, especially expensive ones like that. While we're talking, the kid starts to scramble to pick up the markers. Oh no, you don't. I go over and put my hand on his shoulder, lightly to get him to stop. These are not yours.
Excuse me? Don't touch my kid.
He's trying to steal my pins.
They're not yours, they're his.
Now, one thing to note is, I was once a really shy kid. I suffered really badly with social anxiety through my childhood and teen years. I let people walk all over me and never really stood up for myself. But through some events in my life, that changed, and I started to become more confident and social. I did a complete 180. This was due to being bullied a lot throughout high school, so nowadays, if people even look at me wrong, I'm not afraid to have some stern words. Me. Listen here. These are my pins. I bought them with my own money. So I don't know what makes you think you can just barge in here and take my personal items. But you better give them back and buzz off before I seriously lose my crap. She looks a bit taken aback by my change in tone and choice of language, and I knew what was coming next. Of course, she called the manager. I roll my eyes and groan. I pick up the remainder of the pins and go over to the kid, taking back the remainder that he had. He, of course, starts crying. I did snatch them, but I wasn't forceful enough to hurt him. The manager comes over and asks what the issue is.
All my son wanted to do was play with this girl's pins, and she was incredibly rude to us and even smacked him.
I gasped. I didn't lay a hand on this kid. aside from when I put my hand on his shoulder to stop him from trying to take my markers. Me. Whoa, hold on. I didn't smack him. I put my hand lightly on his shoulder to stop him from taking my expensive markers that you so rudely snatched off of me. Manager. Miss, if those markers belong to her, she has a right not to give them to people.
I just don't understand why it's so hard to share.
She is allowed to do that, and if they are expensive, which they do look at, I can understand why she wouldn't want to.
Is everyone around here incredibly rude and selfish or something?
I just sigh and grab my things. All my art supplies, including all the markers, luckily in one piece, and sketchbook, place them in my bag and go to leave. I didn't really want to watch this hash out, and I tend to just walk out of situations when I don't want to be there. I said my part and didn't need to explain myself more. I went to leave and I heard the entitled mom calling out after me, but I just ignored her. This story doesn't have a satisfying end, but I assume the manager put her in her place after I left. What would you do if you were in OP's position? Would you let Entitled Kid play with your markers? Let me know in the comments below. Next we've got, well, that escalated quickly. So, a bit of backstory. I'm a veteran who suffers from major depression and PTSD. Because of this, my psychiatrist suggested getting a service animal and said she'd write a letter to make it an ESA until it was certified. Luckily, a friend of my mom's was giving away 3 Great Pyrenees Catahoula mixed puppies, which was perfect for me, as I herd and haul cattle for work, and both breeds are herding dogs and very intelligent, happy, and lovable. So she'd be able to help me at work and with my PTSD. The characters are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll mention that Sadie is my pup, the goodest, clumsiest pup that ever pupped. Normally, my company lets me bring Sadie with me, and she'll ride in my truck or hang out in the shop with our mechanic's dog. But my girlfriend usually spends Friday to Sunday at my place, and Sadie latched onto my girlfriend immediately when they met. And they were both cuddled up asleep and looked too cute to wake, so I left Sadie with her for the day, knowing she won't mind, as she has a Great Dane and loves big puppies. After work, I called my girlfriend to let her know I was heading home. She said she was taking care of the horses. Yes, she's a horse girl. And she had Sadie with her, but she was just finishing up. Knowing that neither of us would want to go out again after getting home, I asked her if she wanted to meet me at a pet store to grab a service dog in training vest, because trying to train her in public is pretty hard, as everyone, very understandably, goes crazy for her on site and has to pet her. And I figured that this vest would at least deter the sane crowd. So, fast forward to us in the large chain pet store. There's only like 2, so 50-50 chance you think of it immediately. Letting her choose a few toys and finally coming up on the collars and harnesses section we've been looking for. Cue me fitting her for different harnesses, leashes, and yes, Christmas sweaters as well. I'm starting to put up everything I had pulled out while joking with my girlfriend when I get a hard tap on my shoulder by someone with very long nails. I turn to see what I instinctively know is a very entitled woman. She was mid to late 40s, long bleach blonde hair in a ponytail, jeans that may have fit 20 years ago. Although in her defense, she wasn't overweight, but the jeans were just way too tight, and a button-down western shirt, thankfully with an undershirt, just in case the poor buttons lost their never-ending battle with her obviously artificial body. Now, this is the type of woman I refer to as a Texan soccer mom, but for this story, I'll just call her Karen. Karen, as soon as I start turning.
It's about time. I've been waiting here for at least 5 minutes while you attempt to flirt with this poor woman.
Now, girlfriend hates confrontation and avoids it at all costs. But me, well, I see it as a way to joke, annoy, or just let my inner jerk shine through. Girlfriend knows this, and as we share a look, she rolls her eyes at my smile and walks off with the pup to browse the next aisle. Karen, again annoyed.
Really? You're just going to ignore me?
I'm sorry about that, ma'am. What do you need? Honestly, she was already annoying me with her rudeness, but that's no reason to be a jerk yet.
I need to know where the something is.
I wasn't really paying attention at this point, already deciding to have a laugh, sending her on a wild goose chase. Oh, sure thing, ma'am. Go to the end of this aisle, down 3, make a left, then a right at the next, and it'll be at the top halfway down, or something like that. I don't remember, as I was just saying random things. With that, Karen takes off on her quest to find her magical something, and I walked to meet back up with girlfriend, who was now in line for the one open register in the store. Not complaining, it was moving fast, just setting the scene. Girlfriend: wow, that was fast. Me, a bit proud and with a big smile: oh, she just needed to know where something was. Girlfriend, knowing me well enough to not believe I'd help someone that was being that rude. Really? That's it? Did you help her? Yup, I was a bit rude back though. Karen immediately after, almost cutting into my sentence, with whom I assume is the manager.
That's him right there. And he's still harassing this poor girl, too. I want him fired right now. He gave me the wrong directions to aisles that don't even exist just to get rid of me to flirt with her even more.
Me to my girlfriend, who is visibly annoyed with me. What? Giving her wrong directions is a type of rude? Now, Karen coming up with the manager just made me smile more, which of course annoyed my girlfriend more, but I couldn't help it. This was too funny. Store manager tells Karen, "Ma'am, I've never seen him before. He doesn't work here." And to my girlfriend, "Ma'am, is this man bothering you?" Girlfriend: "Yes, but no more than usual," with a big smile on her face, thinking she was funny.
Karen: then why do you smell like an animal?
Manager: "Ma'am, that's obviously a cow smell. We don't sell cattle." Karen, giving up on the manager and turning to me.
You don't work here? Why didn't you just tell me?
Me: "Why didn't you just ask?"
That's no excuse not to tell me. It would have taken a lot less time.
Yes, but it wouldn't be as fun. Hopefully next time you speak to a worker or a stranger, you won't be so rude. Karen, screeching at this point.
Where do you work? I'll call the manager there to complain about you. And she even admitted that you usually bother her, so I'll tell him about your stalking too.
Okay, at this point we were next in line, and I didn't have any plans on staying to argue, but what she just said made me laugh right in front of her. Lady, I don't know who the heck you think you are, but let me tell you some things. 1, I don't, nor have I ever worked customer service. My boss could care less that I was a jerk to some menopausal old woman. 2, don't be rude to people. No matter their job, they deserve respect. And 3, what is your obsession with me flirting with my girlfriend? I got news for you. Even if I was single, I wouldn't be flirting with you. But I'd be happy to help you find someone more age appropriate. You're what, 55? Yes, I know it was a bit of a low blow since she was obviously sensitive about her age, but at this point she had made it personal, and I was mad that she had accused me of stalking when she didn't even know my name. My girlfriend was doing her best to ignore us and pay so we could leave, and luckily after I said this, she had her receipt in hand and we turned to leave. Karen, eyes wide and mouth agape, of course started screaming at us once she saw us starting to leave. She followed us out to the parking lot, basket and all, with the manager following her since she hadn't paid for anything yet. My girlfriend was starting to visibly shake. She really doesn't handle confrontation well, so I got her in the car and then loaded the bags in the trunk. The entire time, Karen was screaming, mostly incoherently, following me around the car while blocking me from backing out by putting her basket behind my car. At this point, a few things happened at once. First, I got in the driver's seat and started to swing my door shut. Second, Karen tried to stop me from closing the door by grabbing it. Third, she fails to stop the door and it closes. Her hand was still on it. Fourth, she screams like a rabbit being attacked by a ferret. Long story. Fifth, I opened the door so she could get her hand out. She immediately yanks it away and then did the one thing that I never expected. After getting her hand crushed in the door, this idiot tries to stop me from closing the door again, with her knee this time. What the heck? She's definitely got determination, I'll give her that. Of course, it didn't close all the way this time, but I was upset and slammed it, so it closed hard and fast and was probably still pretty painful. Now I'm laughing again, not at her getting hurt, but because as I looked back to tell the manager she may need help back to the store, I saw him already halfway back to the store with her basket. The entire situation was just so unbelievably absurd. At this point, My girlfriend was crying and holding Sadie really tight, so shut the door, made sure no body parts were in it this time, and backed out, careful not to run over Karen. Although admittedly at this point, it'd be a little lie to say I wasn't tempted. It's been a week now, and while I expected to get a summons of a letter from a lawyer or something, nothing has happened. And that's fine, because I don't think that you can get in trouble for hurting someone while they try to restrain you from leaving. I should also say that no, I don't particularly feel bad about anything that happened to Karen, but I feel horrible for putting my girlfriend in this situation and apologized at least 100 times this week. We're good, but I gotta be on my best behavior in public for a while. Entitled mom demands I buy her and her kids food. Just putting this out there, that if I knew beforehand that this entire thing would happen, I'd still let it happen. There's a local burger place in my area that I visit regularly. It's normally empty during the week, but on this day, for whatever reason, there were a few more people in there than usual. I was with a close friend, we'll call him Carlos. I just wanted to hang out with him and get some food. We're standing in the line and talking for about 2 minutes when entitled mom and her 2 boys, I'd guess they were about 10, walk up behind us. One kid starts fussing and whining that he's hungry, and this seemingly triggers the other kid to do the same. Carlos and I just shrug it off and eventually get up to the front of the line and we order our food. Carlos orders before me, but I let the cashier know that I'd be paying for both mine and his meal. This was a mistake. Before I even get my wallet out, entitled mom shoves me out of the way and says,
"I'd like to add to his order,"
and proceeds to order over $40 worth of food for her and her 2 kids. I asked her what she thought she was doing, and she said,
"I saw you pay for that guy,
Carlos.
so I'm sure you wouldn't mind buying food for a single mother and her 2 kids.
Normally, I would have considered that if she, asked first. But who in their right mind thinks it's okay to do what she did? I tell her that I won't be doing paying for any of her food and that she's setting a bad example for her kids by trying to get free stuff from people. That comment upset her, and she started getting all up in my face. I'm not sure if that was meant to intimidate me, but I'm 6'2", and that lady was no taller than 5'5". She raised her voice, saying,
Don't you dare tell me how to parent my kids. You have no idea what it's like being a single mom and raising 2 boys on your own."
I retort, saying, "Yeah, you're right. I don't know what that's like, but I wasn't the one who told you to get knocked up. Twice. So I really don't want to hear your single mom excuse for being a jerk."
"Who the heck do you think you are talking to me like that?"
The guy who up to 2 minutes ago you had no problem trying to spend his money?
"I work 2 darn jobs to provide for my kids, and you think it's okay to stand here and disrespect me?"
You disrespected me by cutting in front of me and assuming that you'd get free food from me. I don't know what world you're living in, but you need to come back to Earth.
"Me and my kids are hungry, and you can't even be nice and help us out?"
You literally ordered $40 worth of food for yourself and 2 kids at possibly the cheapest place in town. That isn't just helping out. And you and your kids being hungry still doesn't make you entitled to free food. You pay just like everyone else in here. Entitled mom stopped shouting.
"I don't have any money. How would you feel if you were in my situation?"
Listen, lady, you're not getting free food off me. If you just asked, I would have been more inclined to be nice and help you. But you clearly think that being a single mom with 2 kids is supposed to make everyone around you do whatever you say, and the world doesn't work that way. So pay for your own food and stop wasting my time. Entitled mom just looked at me angrily and didn't answer. At this point, everyone in the restaurant is looking and listening to the conversation. My buddy Carlos is about ready to sock her, and the people behind us in line are hungry and clearly unhappy. I tell the cashier to remove whatever she ordered, and I pay for my food. I thought that would be the end of it, but boy, was I wrong. Entitled mom orders her food again after, and angrily forks over the money she clearly had and pays for all her food. Carlos looks at me and asks, "What the heck just happened?" To which I respond, "Your guess is as good as mine, bro." We get our food and are about to leave when Entitled Mom shouts out,
Those two guys harassed me.
and we turn to see the manager of the restaurant. She goes on to say that I harassed her and she wanted the cops called on me immediately. This lady clearly forgot that the entire store witnessed the entire thing and no one was having it any longer. I didn't need to say much to defend myself to him before the entirety of the store started shouting and screaming at her for holding up the line and falsely accusing me of things. I'm pretty sure the lady got scared because without collecting her food, she took her 2 kids and ran out of the store. Carlos and I looked at each other and started dying of laughter, and a few other people did as well. We apologized to the manager and everyone else for the inconvenience and left the store. We haven't stopped laughing about it since then. Is it ever okay to try to get someone to pay for your food? Let me know in the comments. How Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid tried to steal and destroy $2,000 worth of cards. I judge collectible card game tournaments from local levels all the way up to the World Championships. On the local levels, I go from store to store to judge and run events, and the stores would pay me. Really, thanks judges, we really owe you one for this, and would let me have extra promos on top of the pay, so I'm usually swimming in promos. Now, while I am getting paid to judge, I am not an employee of the stores. In fact, I do this because there's not enough judges in the area, and the stores can't run the tournaments without a certified judge. I am pretty generous with the promos and give it away liberally as my binders run over and I need the binder real estate. On more than one occasion, I have snared new players doing this. A few months ago, I was running and judging a tournament at a local store. It was well attended for the store size, as a prize kit that was supposed to have been delivered 2 months before finally reared its head, and this store was the first to get it in the area. So for a lot of players, this was the first chance for them to get the prizes from this kit. The store also wanted to do the current month's kit at the same time, so the prize payout was going to be amazing for this. The store and I had a system. Players would pay, and right after they paid, I would register them. So I had my laptop behind the counter, next to the register. Again, this was a very well-attended tournament for a local, and ultimately, we have over 40 people registered in a store whose capacity was 50 people. Here's the deal. At 40-ish people, this is considered to be a small to mid-sized tournament. Tournament entry is usually $20 per person. On top of that, these players buy a lot of product, as this is the only time they usually get to the store. Everything from sleeves, booster packs, deck boxes, drinks, snacks, other games, etc. On a tournament this size, the store can easily make 50% of their profit for the month. It took us about 45 minutes to get through everyone. I got some good nature ribbing for something that happened at a regional event. The players are awesome. They come from all walks of life, from high school to career veterans to business owners. They're a community, lend each other cards, buy drinks and snacks for each other. They helped me out when I first got started in the game and helped me through some really hard times in my life. They're my nerds and I'm their geek, and I love them. So as I registered people, I was giving them their participation prize, and when I finally got the last person registered, I immediately paired the round and was about to welcome the players and do general announcements. Enter Entitled Kid. I've seen Entitled Kid before when I came here for other game nights when I'm not judging, and he was just obnoxious. He would lose and slam down his card. He would make rude comments, and overall, win or lose, going up against him was an NPE, negative play experience, and has been warned to fix his behavior a few times, but it never improved, and I finally had to recommend to the owner to ban him from the store. Just as I was getting ready to do my thing, Entitled Kid.
How come I didn't get one?
Me. Oh, I'm sorry. What's your name?
I'm Entitled Kid.
I'm sorry. I didn't see you register for the tournament. You're going to have to pay first, then come back here. The kid huffed and went away. I figured if he doesn't come back in 5 minutes, no big loss, and I'll start the tournament. I took the time to put the rest of the prizes out and get them sorted so it'll be easier when I need to give them out. just as I was about to start again, I see Entitled Kid come in the store with Entitled Mom in her full Karen Galia, and they are making their way towards me. She puts her coffee on the counter.
Explain to me why you didn't give my son a card.
I will give him a card, but he has to pay for entry for the tournament so I can register him.
He said you gave cards away to people before, so why can't you do that now?
Me. At this moment, I have a flashback of something a sister said when we went out to eat a few weeks back. Your generosity is going to bite you in your butt one day. And in this deluded flashback, my sister is cackling maniacally like an evil witch putting a curse on me. Oh, that. Well, that's my personal collection, and I hand out extras I have.
Well, can Entitled Kid have one of those?
I'm thinking I got to get this tournament started as players were getting a bit antsy. I guess. But isn't Entitled Kid going to be playing in the tournament?
No. Why would he play in the tournament with these losers? Besides, I have plans and need to get going soon.
Okay. Well, let me get this tournament started, and I'll go to my car and get my extra binders.
This is ridiculous. Why can't you just give Entitled Kid one of those cards now?
Those are for tournament participants, and since Entitled Kid has neither paid or will be registering for the tournament, I can't give him one. It wouldn't be fair to everyone else in the tournament.
I don't care about that. Entitled Kid wants one of those, and you will give him one. Jerk, where is your manager?
Me. OMG. Realizing I'm having a hybrid r/entitled parents and r/I don't work here lady moment, and deciding I wanted neither. You know what? I have a tournament to start. I start walking towards the tournament area, and she reaches over the counter and grabs my shirt, jerking me back. I almost fell down. When I recovered, I told an actual store employee to get the owner.
Don't walk away from me.
I notice a few players getting up, trying to get my attention, and I give them a 1-second signal, and then notice the players were actually pointing at something. I look in the general direction of where they're pointing, and I see Entitled Kid going through the top cut prizing and putting cards in his pocket. Me. Entitled Kid, stop! Those aren't yours. You didn't earn those.
Shut up. Aren't you in enough trouble? Don't talk to my kid that way. I want your manager. No!
At this point, the prizes were in disarray, and Entitled Kid has pocketed a lot of them, and I'm still in Entitled Mom's grip. I twisted my body to free myself from Entitled Mom's grip, and then she slammed her hand on the counter and was about to go off again, when we noticed the force of the slam has tipped her coffee cup over and spilled coffee all over the prizes, and it also splashed onto cards that a guy was selling. The owner walks in just as all of this was happening, and he had a look of, I've had enough of this crap. Players immediately rushed us, surrounded Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid, and switched from going off on them and trying to explain to the owner what happened. The owner was ex-Navy and, in a voice that only a retired sailor can muster, told everyone to shut up. When everyone was quiet, Entitled Mom thought she won, grabbed Entitled Kid, and with a look of triumph on her face, said to Entitled Kid,
Did you get everything you wanted?
Yeah.
Fine, we're leaving. Oh, and you should fire this guy.
Owner, you're not going anywhere. Clerk, call the cops.
What? Well, good. I needed to tell them how your employee assaulted me.
He's not my employee, and he didn't assault you.
He points at the cameras he has all over the store, and Entitled Mom, oblivious to what he's implying, just went on.
Yes, he did. He also denied Entitled Kid what he was owed and tried to steal cards from him. I demand you fire him, or we'll never come here again.
Owner, completely fed up, and in his salty sea dog voice.
Good. Please never come here again. Make my year. I would love to never have to see you or your spoiled brat cheating sore loser of a son here ever again. This guy is not my employee, but he's more valuable to me than the measly $5 Entitled Kid pays for a single booster pack every week.
He kept going, and throughout all this, I'm trying to clean the promos, but as I got through, it was just more and more evident that there's nothing we can do to salvage any of it. My heart broke,
Not for the monetary value of over $1,000, but because the players that were looking forward for months on this chance to get these prizes, and now these things are worthless and wouldn't even be usable in casual play. The owner finished his rant just as the cops arrived, and entitled mom rushed them and tried the same thing about me assaulting her and trying to steal cards from her kid. The owner looked at the cops, who he apparently knew from somewhere. Owner: Cop 1, that's not true. Come on back and I'll show you the video. Cop 1 went back with the owner, and Cop 2 was talking to the mom. A player noticed that there was blood on my shirt. Player: Dude, you okay? Yeah, I mean, not really. Look at all this. I can't give this to you now. No, dude, you're bleeding. What? I look where entitled mom grabbed me, and there are bloody lines on my chest. I guess when she grabbed me, her nails broke skin. One of the players was an EMT and grabbed the first aid kit and started tending to my wound. He said it didn't look too bad, but Cop 2 asked what happened, and the EMT told him everything. Cop 2 put entitled mom in cuffs. She was yelling up a storm and tried to run away, but the sea of nerds that are my amazing players blocked her. A few minutes later, Cop 1 came back out and wanted to talk to me and the dude that was selling his cards. They asked us if we also wanted to press charges, as the owner is pressing charges. The other guy said yes, as apparently her coffee destroyed about $800 worth of cards that he was selling. I'm thinking about the disappointment my players must be feeling, and I got really angry, and I decided yes, I wanted to press charges on her. In the end, she was arrested and was charged with theft, what entitled kid pocketed, destruction of property, the prizes, the cards the guy was selling, as well as assault and battery, grabbing my shirt and scratching so hard she drew blood. What stuck with me about that part was that she was about to leave entitled kid. Entitled kid's dad was called and picked him up. I went through the prizes entitled kid pocketed and tried to salvage them, but I don't know what he had in his pocket. But these cards were dirty and scratched up. Big shame too, as they were some of the best art I've seen. In the end, the owner told the players he would contact the publisher and see if he can get another kit, and he would refund them their entry as he didn't feel comfortable making people play for damaged prizes. The players can take what they want. Everyone divided up the prizes as evenly as possible, but a lot of them were just too damaged and warped by the coffee. The players still wanted to play, and the owner told them they can play for store credit, and I finally started the tournament 2 hours late. The first time ever in my judging career, I pride myself on making sure the tournament started either on time or early. I'm ex-Navy too, and know that when you're on time, you're late. Entitled Kid was banned from the store, and Entitled Mom was convicted of all counts and was sentenced to probation, community service, and had to pay a pretty hefty fine. There is a really happy ending to this story though. The owner contacted the publisher and explained what happened, and the publisher sent us double of each prize kit that we were supposed to run that day. We scheduled that tournament as soon as we can, and turnout was awesome, and since the publisher sent us so much, almost everything was participation prize. Next we've got, I got fired from a job that I did not work. This happened to me a while ago in my native Germany. I shop for the weekends, and anyone who knows that the German word Wochenendeinkauf means shopping like a demented doomsday prepper, know what I mean? So I was trying to shop for the weekend, and since the girlfriend kind of works retail, thus massive respect for the retail workers out there, I get to be on the receiving end of all the crazy stories. And the same way you don't mess with a sysadmin because he makes the computers run, you don't mess with retail people because they hand you food. I decided that it was time to shine as an adult and do all my shopping alone and without help. I wore kind of a yellow polo shirt because everyone has got to do their laundry at one time or another. I know, such adult, very wow. Now, I am over 6'9" tall, if Google does not lie, and look the part, blonde beard and blue eyes and all, but I have one weakness, one critical weakness, helping old ladies. Because I can go to the gym and lift till my arms give out, and I will receive a passable boost to my self-esteem. But when a little old lady asks, "Can you get this 1 kilo bag of flour?" and then proceeds to make the big eyes and compare me to Superman and say that I look like they expected Hercules to look or some other stuff, yeah, that puts a grin on my face that won't leave for a week. So I am in the store,
helping the occasional elderly lady out and doing my shopping when I hear ahem behind me over my headphones. Thinking nothing bad, I just turned my head to the left and to the right, shrugged, and continued my shopping. What follows next is a yank on my in-ear headphones so they fall out of my ears, and then a tirade of epic proportions from a peroxide blonde wearing clothes that would just look good on her daughter, but look ridiculous on her. Fake tanned and excessive jewelry wearing person with a Karen haircut. I just let her rant and rave while trying to actually figure out what she wants, and she lays into me. I am apparently dumb, lazy, shiftless, good for nothing, undereducated, and all the good words. She has tried to get my attention for the last 30 minutes. She saw me helping out those little old ladies, and she cleverly deduced I must have been a store employee. So normally, I am very reserved with public confrontations because I have a certain size, and when I start yelling, it always looks bad. But I also work as a sysadmin, and while my patience with stupid users is higher than normal, when it snaps, it snaps. People's mail accounts get deleted and so forth, and then we have to wait 5 weeks for the backups to arrive. And sorry, your computer just broke. We got you the new Windows 95 machine to do your work on while we try to fix it. So I am thinking, well, she probably has had a bad day. Her fake tan seeped into her brain. I know. Let's be good and clear this up and be on our way. Water under the bridge, right? Except then she poked me in the chest, her shrill yapping accentuating that I now needed to jump like her little slave. Poke, 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 poke. Sysadmin mode from heck activated. I don't work in this store, and I will not help you. Get a manager. I naively thought that this was the end of it and put my headphones back in, but left one out as the constant stream of yapping disappeared. This alerted me to the Karen returning, this time with a manager in tow. A pimply-faced youngling without a beard that looked intensely uncomfortable while trying to get a word in. She demanded I get fired on the spot for being rude to her. I turned to the manager and quit on the spot, saying that I would at least have expected him to care if one of his best employees was treated like that by a customer, that I was in half a mind to hand him back the shirt right now on the floor and shop bare-chested, and that since I no longer worked for him, I was now free to shop in the alcohol section during daytime, and I was intending to do so tonight. As an added bonus, I went down to Karen's eye level and added that if she decides to lay hands on me again, and the store security did not immediately tase her or throw her out of the store, I would see this as a threat and would react appropriately, doing the job for them as a last thank you for all of those paychecks, and because not another worker here could lay a hand on her. And then I gave her my best, I am 5 minutes away from turning into a berserker. You feel lucky, jerk. Smile. Oh, there was screaming afterwards and accusations of being violent, but I just put my headphones in, turned around, and lumbered back to another section. 10 minutes later, the manager is back, this time alone. I unplug my headphones and ask him what he wants. He says he is very sorry, but he has looked and he knows everyone, but apparently they don't have me on file as an employee. So was I actually sure I worked here? Nope, just thought instead of putting you in an awkward situation, I would do what was expected of me and say what everyone in earshot was thinking. End of the song and dance was, he accompanied me to the register and personally applied his manager discount to my walk-in and dine cough. Let's just say I do intend to return to this store. Entitled mom refuses to move her car when I tell her to, so I write her a ticket. I work at an airport. Federal regulations prohibit vehicles parking next to the terminals. My job is to tell people this and have them take a loop around or go wait in a park and wait area. Most people understand and drive off. The people who always give me a hard time are the elderly ladies. Anyway, cast. We've got entitled mom, we've got poor son, and me. We get drivers coming to pick up their people in waves due to multiple flights landing around the same time. Drivers will then pull up to the nearest open curb and park. What we do is break the stretch up section by section and start from the area closest to exit and work our way down. I had just finished telling a vehicle to take a loop when entitled mom comes speeding down the road and wedges her way into the slot I just made. When this happens, we don't say or do anything because often their person is on the sidewalk ready to go. I'll finish talking to the cars that have been there a minute and then come back. When I go back to her, I give her the same phrasing as everyone else. Hi. Unfortunately, there's no parking and waiting. Active loading only. If your party is not out here, you're going to have to take a loop around, alright? Entitled Mom.
Oh no, my son is coming out right now.
Me. Okay, ma'am, I can give you another minute, but if he's not out by the time I start walking back to you, you'll have to leave. I then stroll off before she can say anything. Usually when I say that line, people try to argue and ask for more time or get angry. So to prevent that, walking away is the best option. I finish this section again and head back. Now, doing a section usually takes about 5 minutes, so she's had plenty of time. Me, tapping on her window to get her attention. Still no luck?
No, he's coming soon.
Unfortunately, ma'am, you'll have to go around it this time. Just get into the leftmost lane and you'll see a sign that says Return to Terminal. Only a 4-minute drive. Entitled Mom.
I'm not going. He's so close to coming out.
Ma'am, if you're still here when I come back, you're getting a ticket. Hearing this, her inside Karen awoke. Karen.
You have no right to threaten me in such a way. I am a tax-paying citizen, so my money paid for this airport. I can wait as long as I want.
I don't argue with people, but I did notice the section was full again, so I just walked away. Finish it again in another 5 minutes, and she's still there. At this point, I pull out my ticket book as I am walking to her vehicle. Everyone on the sidewalk is smirking and giggling a little. They're enjoying the drama. I walk right past her window and stand in front of her car and start writing her plates. Entitled Mom.
What do you think you're doing? You have no authority. You're not even a police officer.
This is true. I am not police. However, I am airport operations. I have to enforce airport safety and protocol. When acting on behalf of my job, what I say is just the same as if it were from a cop. Me. Ma'am, I have told you several times you'd have to take a loop around. Plus, you've had over 15 minutes to wait. She continues to yell at me, trying to create a scene and make me nervous to stop writing the ticket. It's also policy to not hand the person the ticket. We are to put it under the windshield wiper. I do just that. However, just before I do, I get a feeling to call control. Not ATC, but airport control, and request a camera be out on me, just for safety. Entitled Mom.
Now you're trying to break my property. I want to talk to your manager because you're getting fired.
Me. Ma'am, I'll be more than happy to call a supervisor. However, about breaking your property, we have video evidence I did no such thing. The entitled mom keeps going off. I can take it. The section is mostly empty. However, there's still a lot of passengers on the sidewalk just watching the whole scenario. She then gets out of her vehicle and says something like,
Well, since I've already been ticketed, I'm just going to go find my son.
The ticket she was given was for airport signs and markings. There's a different code for an unattended vehicle. Me, being the cold-hearted jerk I am, let her walk away. Gave it a minute, wrote her another ticket, and called for a tow truck to take it away. The entitled mom comes right when the tow truck starts backing up to lift her front wheels.
What the heck are you doing?
Me. Unattended vehicles must be towed away.
See, son? I told you he was discriminating me and targeting me only because I am a woman. You need to do something.
Son. Sir, how long has my mom been parked here? Me. I'd say about 40 minutes. Mom, you know that's way too long. Son shakes his head, and before his mom can start to say something, he says loudly, Let's cut our losses right now and leave, before it gets towed all the way away. If a vehicle is towed, it is an additional $50, but even if the tow truck touches the vehicle, it's $25 to the driver of the tow truck. The son comes over to me while his mom gets in the passenger seat. I'm sorry for what she said to you. If anyone apologizes to me, I call it good. I tell him it's whatever, and then he thanks me for being patient. Because he is being so nice, I decide to teach his mom a lesson. Me. Because you're being very polite and reasonable, I'll waive the $25 towing fee. Thanks, I really appreciate that. I'll be getting out of here right now. He then turns to the whole crowd. I am sorry for how my mother behaved and acted. If she offended anyone, I am so sorry. I take it he wanted to teach her a lesson too. I figure, let's add on to it. Me. Sir, because people like you make my job easy, fun, and nice, I'll also void the second ticket. I grab it and walk away. Do you think he should have voided those tickets or left them for Entitled Mom to pay? Let me know in the comments. Next we've got Entitled Mom thinks it's okay for her son to break the law. Cast. We've got Boyfriend, Entitled Mom's son. We've got Entitled Mom, Boyfriend's mother. We've got my mom and me. Okay, so this is gonna seem really bizarre, and I can't believe this is a real thing that happened, but yeah. Backstory. My ex-boyfriend was hurt a lot in past relationships, cheated on by every girl, so he has a lot of trust problems. I'm fairly independent, and he's needy and clingy. We've constantly had problems with his codependency, but we both really liked each other despite the problems. I've mentioned several times he should go see a counselor to talk about insecurities he doesn't want to tell me. He hates all of my male friends, but doesn't care about my female friends. I'm not close with his family, despite dating him for 9 months. His family is also kind of toxic and uncomfortable to be around. The story. I had been hearing strange noises at my house one night, and since I am really anxious, I kept mentioning it to my boyfriend, and he asked me multiple times if I wanted him to walk over and check it out. He lives only a few blocks away. I kept telling him no, but I was freaked out. Ended up calling him, and through my window, I could hear him talking. He wasn't in my backyard, but he was standing by my gate looking around for me. At the time, I was slightly upset, but more relieved. It helped soothe my anxiety that no one was there. The next night, I was getting ready for bed, around 1:30 a.m., and I was just settling down when I hear someone sniff, and the sound of movement in the backyard side alley by our house. I froze, terrified and in tears. I called him instantly to tell him someone was at my house, and I could hear, once again, him through my window. This time, he was in my backyard by my window to check up on me. I was mortified, and I told him that was a complete breach of privacy and unacceptable. I told him I didn't want to see him for a bit, and we would discuss this in depth after I calmed down. The next day, I hadn't told my family about it when I am awoken from a call from my mother. She tells me that they, my brother and her, had just left the house and saw a boyfriend at the park across the street from my house, and he tried to duck and hide from them, and she saw him when he peeked to see if they were gone. After they came home, my brother explained he had seen him walking away from our house when he walked out, and my mother had seen him at the park once they drove by a few minutes later. This creeped my mother out, and she informed me of that. I explained what happened, and she said it's my choice what I do from here, but she wants to put a lock on the gate because it's made her uncomfortable. Acceptable. Called boyfriend right after they called to chew him out. He claims he was at the park drinking coffee, enjoying the morning. Neither of them saw a coffee cup, but I chose to let it go and tell him not to come near my house and to go to the park across his street and not come down to mine. A few days later, things have calmed down a little. Haven't deep talked about stuff yet, but I missed him. So since I woke up early for work and then was sent home before clocking on, it was dead. I invited him over to start The Mandalorian with my brother and I. We watched 2 episodes, and at one point, he tried to cuddle up to me, and I gently pulled away since I was still upset, but wanted to be around him. He goes silent because he's upset, and I get upset he can't be an adult about giving me space. Had him go home, got into bed since I decided to take a nap, was text arguing with him since he was throwing a fit about how I brushed him off. I ended up falling asleep without saying anything to him. Woke up from my nap to my dog barking nonstop to the doorbell. Few minutes later, my brother comes in to tell me that our neighbors called the police since they saw someone in our backyard looking through our windows. I wonder who it could be. Immediately call him. This is our conversation. Me. Were you in my backyard? Boyfriend. No, I'm home right now. Boyfriend, were you in my backyard a bit ago? Raising voice, because I just woke up and I'm upset that he did it again. No, I'm at home right now. Sound of rustling and arguing. Entitled Mom.
Who is this?
Me. It's me. From here on out is roughly what was said. Honestly, I didn't memorize it. This happened before Christmas, and I was so upset in the moment that mostly I got yelled at and barely comprehended it.
Good. I've been wanting to talk to you and your mother.
Her son and I are both 20. We're adults. Why do you need to talk to my mother? Also, you can hear boyfriend begging for her to stop.
Have you been telling my son that he needs to see a psychiatrist?
Me starts to respond.
Don't talk. I'm talking right now. My son is not crazy, and he doesn't need to see a psychologist.
She kept swapping back and forth from psychologist and psychiatrist.
And you need to stop telling him that he needs to see one. I think you need to see one, because you have a boy who loves you so much as to go out several times a night to check up on you.
Me. Do you know what your son has been doing?
I know that you have a boy who loves you so much as to go into your backyard and see what you're doing. I know that if I was him, I wouldn't have stayed with you after catching you in the car with another boy.
Talking to a concerned friend about boyfriend's behavior and how it made him and my other friends uncomfortable. Boyfriend decided to walk over and check on me when I didn't respond to my texts. Phone was in purse. Didn't think we would talk for an hour.
If I was boyfriend, when I found you, I would have pulled you out of the car and dumped you. My son loves you so much, and you just treat him like dirt, and his dad and I have talked about it, and we hate the way you treat him. And if he needs to see a psychiatrist, it's because of you.
Me. I never told him to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I told him to see a therapist or a counselor to talk to.
I think you need to talk to a therapist.
I think therapy is healthy.
Then why don't you go and stop telling my son to go?
I have gone.
Oh yeah? And what's wrong with you?
Manipulation from my father. Wish I hadn't told her, but I was being really impulsive about what I was saying because I was upset and can't function when people start yelling at me. Entitled Mom scoffs.
I want to talk to your mother. Come over here with her.
My mother is 70. I'm not having my mother walk over.
She's 70?
Literally drove this woman to McDonald's, and we talked about this, and she went on and on about how God has a plan, and this was his plan for me and stuff. Me. Yes, I've told you this before.
It doesn't matter. My mother comes over all the time.
I'm not having my mother come over and be yelled at by you.
Then I'll come over there.
Supposed to be a threat. Okay, I'll go tell her you're on your way. Give her time to get dressed. She's laying down.
See you soon.
Hangs up. Now that I'm off the phone, all the anxiety hits me. There's gonna be a confrontation here soon. I'm crying and shaking a bit. I know, baby alert. And I go in and tell my mother to get ready. She gets up, gets dressed while comforting me. She texts boyfriend to tell him that it is ridiculous to have his mother come over and that she doesn't want to deal with this. He calls her, except it isn't boyfriend. It's entitled Mom. We both knew it. I told her it's her decision if she answers. She stares at the phone for a few rings before answering. I only heard her side and the muffled voice of entitled Mom. Entitled Mom says something about me. My mom. It doesn't matter what I think. They are both adults, and I have no right to put my input in, and neither do you. Entitled Mom tries to say more. My mom hangs up. Later she told me that I'm young and allowed to make my own decisions and my mistakes, so whatever I do, it's up to me. She never shows up. Guess boyfriend talked her down. For anyone interested, we had a sit down later where we both outlined everything that was going to change from our relationship going forward, and I told him if he was ever in my backyard again, we would instantly be over. And then last night, not even a week later, he was in my backyard again. So that's over. What would you do if your boyfriend or girlfriend kept showing up in your backyard in the middle of the night? Let me know in the comments. Next we've got My entitled grandmother exchanged my new clothes for steel utensils. I'm Indian, and in my country, till a few years ago, you could get steel utensils from door-to-door vendors in exchange for clothes. This barter system still exists in villages and some small towns. My grandmother, being the insane hoarder that she was, loved getting utensils in this manner. Utensils that no one else was allowed to touch, that she would never use and would only gather dust in her room. Anytime my stepmom or dad tried to donate our old clothes to charity, that jerk would throw a hissy fit. She'd collect all the clothes we weren't going to wear anymore so she could exchange them for pots and pans. At times, she would take it a step further and demand clothes that we were still going to wear. She would insist that they didn't fit us anymore or some other BS argument to get us to hand them over. Seriously, we had to sometimes fight her to keep our clothes. Oh, but she never gave away her own clothes. She only took garments from others, namely me, my dad, my stepmom, and my stepbrother. When I was around 21, I had just lost a lot of weight and needed new clothes. Yes, I lived with my parents. In India, you can't afford to live independently unless you have a well-paying job, and I was in college at that time. So one day I went to a local store's clearance sale and bought a bunch of new threads. I left them on my bed and went off to a friend's place. When I returned a few hours later, my new clothes were gone. My dad, stepmom, and brother weren't home, so I figured out instantly who must have taken them. I confronted the grand monster and asked what she had done with my clothes. She was sitting on her bed, admiring her latest haul of pots and pans. Without even looking up, she told me my clothes were ugly and too westernized, and that she did the right thing by exchanging them for something useful. As you can imagine, I lost my temper. I yelled at her, called her every name in the book, and she had the audacity to actually defend her actions. That evening, there was a major showdown in our home. I was still livid and asked my dad exactly how long we were going to put up with her. My stepmother and I don't get along, but when one of us was up against Grand Monster, the other always lent her support. This was no different. My stepmother agreed with me wholeheartedly. My dad told Grand Monster that she was now forbidden from entering my room without my prior permission. She started to fake cry and said we were all being so cruel to her. My dad later came to my room and said he would make it up to me and buy me new clothes. I, of course, was still livid, and I wasn't about to let that jerk have this victory. My grandmother needed sleeping pills to fall asleep. She took them even during the day. A few days later, I snuck into her room during her afternoon nap. I opened her utensils trunk. Yes, she had a whole trunk full of them, and took out a whole bunch of her beloved pots, glasses, plates, etc. I shut the lid quietly and exited. I went straight to an old age shelter that was nearby. I donated the utensils and earned the joy of giving and the taste of sweet, sweet revenge. I didn't tell anyone what I had done and just waited for Grand Monster to discover her loss, which she did just a few days later. It happened in the evening. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner when I heard her ear-piercing wailings about how someone had stolen from her utensils chest. A satisfied smile spread across my face. My dad called me into grandmother's room and asked if I knew anything about the missing utensils. I admitted that I had taken and donated them. Grand Monster looked like her head would explode. I calmly told her I had done the right thing because those utensils were ugly and that the shelter needed them more. And clearly, if she could come into my room and take my things without asking, I could jolly well do the same. I think my dad was upset with me, but really had nothing to say to me. He spent the next hour or so trying to calm his mother down. I slept so well that night. When Grand Monster passed a few years later, the first of her belongings that we got rid of were those utensils. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this revenge? Next we've got, better be able to do what you say. Not to me, but my brother was the one to enact this revenge. He works on the assembly line of a well-known company. Soon learns that a lot of employees were either transferred or quit from this position over the year. He would soon learn it was because of a fellow worker stationed with him. Let's call him Richard. Richard has been working in this position for over 20 years, was apparently a high school dropout, and this was the only work he managed to find. As the years went on, people who worked with Richard seemed to get promoted to more difficult tasks that required further education in the field, and it seemed Richard was not liking that at all. Richard began making life difficult for those who had to work at the same station as him, even going so far as to take credit for their work and shifting the blame of his faulty products to them since he had been there for so many years and knows what he is doing. Then along comes my brother. He had a basic grasp of what the job entailed, having done the basic stuff in high school. It took him a little while, but eventually he worked his way to be on the same position as Richard and was soon producing the same output and quality as Richard. Naturally, Richard began to take credit for more and more of my brother's work. HR eventually got to be involved after a complication between the two when numbers presented indicated that my brother had faults in almost all of his work, and that Richard had somehow managed to produce much more than the employee average, going on stating, "I can do the work of two of us and produce a quality product. OP's brother should not be here, and it would save you all a lot of money." Naturally, my brother was frustrated. Cameras could not prove that either were at fault for producing faulty products. Brother got a verbal warning, and both left. My brother went and spoke to the site manager about the issue. Big surprise to those who were not I, but they were good friends through high school. They both talked, and the revenge was soon planned. After the manager went to HR and checked statements made from Richard, they impacted the revenge. Being near the Christmas break, orders were low, so if faulty products were made, they could easily be remade and not affect the schedule. Perfect time to act. My brother had time off built up with the company, so he used it. The site manager then went up to Richard, informing him that my brother will no longer be working with him. Richard's slight smile apparently turned to a look of disgust when the manager informed him that he would be working at the station by himself and that he could not let their required numbers drop. That did not sit well with Richard, and they both went to HR. Richard was yelling that it was unfair and unprofessional that he had to work alone and yet had to do so much work. Then the manager brought out a file containing various statements about how he was good at his job and how effective he was. Apparently, the manager's response was, "You said you could do it, and if it does save us money, then would you not think you would get some financial benefit out of it too?" Richard took that bait of extra income and left in a huff. Needless to say, over the next 2 days, the numbers were not met, even with the majority of products were deemed faulty and could not be used. This time, the manager called a meeting with higher-ups, HR, and Richard. Richard tried to defend his actions, but with all his statements and the recent evidence of his skill level, he was let go. Brother came back to work, new guy replacing Richard, and eventually the quantity and quality of products were back to the required levels. Like the manager had said, Richard would not have to work with him anymore. If you're going to talk a big game, Richard, be sure you can play it. Entitled mom demands money from me year after year. This happened several years ago. I was driving in my car, listening to Bon Jovi on my radio, singing along to Livin' on a Prayer, when I saw a mother and her 2 kids standing by the side of the road and frantically trying to flag me over. This was in the time where I had already learned that nothing good ever comes from picking up people on the side of the road. Yet, I still had the mindset that one day, maybe somebody really would need my help, and I didn't want to prejudge them because other people have been jerks in the past. I pulled my car over and rolled my window down, asking if they were okay. Tearful, the mother said that her oldest son was in the hospital and she needed a ride to get to him. I told them to hop in and I would drive them. South Africa is a very poor country, so whole families counting on rides really isn't in any way uncommon. The mother climbed into the back seat with her son, who was about 5, and daughter, probably around 12, climbed into the front seat. This is important. All the hospitals were in the opposite direction that I was going, so I turned my car around and started in that general direction. I asked her which hospital her son was in, and she gave me the name. I knew exactly where it was, so continued driving. The mother asked my name, and I introduced myself as Roland. This wasn't my real name, but was an alias I had started using when introducing myself to homeless people and hitchhikers. She introduced herself as Entitled Mother. We drove in silence for about a minute when the daughter started sobbing. The following line exchange occurred between her and her mother. Translated. Daughter: Mom, I don't want to sleep on the street tonight. Entitled Mom:
I know, baby, but I know God will provide a miracle.
But Mom, where will that miracle come from?
Maybe he's already sent it.
I face-palmed hypothetically as I knew where this was going. Entitled Mom tells me,
Roland, won't you help us?
I am helping you. I'm driving you 30 minutes in the opposite direction of where I was going.
But please, I'm a single mother, and I need you to just open your heart.
I can't have my kids sleeping on the street,
and I just need some money for food and some school things.
Daughter:
Yes, Roland, please just help us.
I was getting uncomfortable, but was sticking to my guns. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Why not? You're rich.
I really wasn't. Yeah, I'm not.
You're rich enough to help us.
Listen, lady, I'm not going to give you any money. So if you don't drop this, I'm not going to take you to your son either.
Fine. Then if you're not going to help us, then just drive us to...
Insert business park here. Me: That's nowhere near the hospital. Have you forgotten about your son?
If you're not going to help us, then we can't afford to visit him.
Me: Okay. I drive her to the new place that she had requested and pulled over the car.
I'm not getting out until you help us.
Daughter:
Yes, please, Roland, just help us. God sent you.
Me: I'm not going to help you. This exchange continued for a while until she finally got out, calling me a bunch of choice phrases in the process. I thought that was the end of it. Silly rabbit. Cut forward a few months later. I don't recall what I was listening to that time, but I near the place I had picked them up the first time when I see a kid standing, crying, alone next to the road. I had mostly forgotten about my incident with Entitled Mom and stopped to ask him if he was okay. He was still crying, and I told him to get in so I could drive him to a police station. Out of nowhere, this same entitled mother appears and gets into the car as well. She's in the back, he's in the front. I recognize her instantly, but she obviously did not remember me. She started her line reading and rehashed the same story about having a son in the hospital, blah blah. I just played dumb. Then it happened.
Mom, I don't want to sleep in the street tonight.
I know, baby, but I know God will provide a miracle.
But Mom, where will that miracle come from?
Maybe he's already sent it.
Hearing this, I was actually mad. By now, I obviously knew that the mother was a con lady, but literally teaching her kids scripted lines, teaching them that from an age as young as this kid was, I felt slightly sickened. Entitled Mom started asking me for money again, but this time I just ignored her. I pulled over in front of a police station and warned her that she had 10 seconds to vacate my vehicle or I was going to get someone to do it for her. She yelled at me again but complied, and this would be the end, right? Nope. Cut forward a few years later. I'm driving again in a completely different side of town when two girls literally jump in front of my car and yell for me to stop. I roll the window down and frantically they tell me that someone's chasing them and I need to get them out of there. I quickly unlock the car doors and they get in, one in the front, one in the back. I start speeding away and ask them if I should drive them to the police station. They say no and ask me to drive them into town. Then it happens. The one in the front speaks the words. Girl 1.
Friend, I don't want to sleep on the street tonight.
Girl 2.
I know, but don't worry. God will provide a miracle.
Girl 1.
But where will that miracle come from?
Girl 2.
Maybe he's already sent it.
Girl 1 was entitled mother's daughter that had been in the car a few years earlier. Would you give Karen a ride if you thought she needed some help? Let me know in the comments. Next we've got cancel my leave, say goodbye to your promotion. I used to work in a disability shared accommodation agency. It's a job where you support 4 to 6 people with disabilities who share the accommodation. It's shift work, 2 clients per staff member during the day, 1 staff member on a sleepover at night. The rosters are 4-week rotating rosters. I was employed as a .75, meaning I work 75% of what is considered full-time, equating to 57 hours a fortnight. Working shifts sucked, but the pay was good. I was working in a house I'll call Sunup. Sunup had 4 residents and 7 workers. Each house had a house supervisor. They reported to the cluster manager, who managed 6 houses. Cluster manager reports to the CEO. By company policy, leave requests are first in, best dressed, meaning you need to put your leave in early to ensure you get it. I was transferred to Sunup from a 6-client house due to my qualifications and situations I cannot legally disclose. I worked for the first year, got to know staff, clients, house supervisor, etc. There was an obvious clique between 4 staff members. Each school holidays, 3 would apply for leave and 1 would call in sick with a medical certificate covering the same amount of time. They would always rotate who is sick to hide what they were up to. They were friends outside of work who would party together. After a year, the house supervisor fell sick. One of the clique members, Karen, was appointment acting supervisor, and it went to heck. She tried reducing my hours and giving extra time to a friend. I pointed out that I'm contracted for 57 hours a fortnight, so I'm getting paid for 57 hours a fortnight. Her friends got extra shifts, were given the best shifts, and were all around favored by Karen. In January, I put in leave for March school holidays. Karen rejected it on the grounds that others had already submitted leave. Her clique all applied for this time. I left this alone. In March, I checked the leave calendar for the June school holiday. Each house had a leave calendar, so management and staff can check who scheduled leave. It was empty. I submitted leave again and it was rejected. Karen said,
Sorry, you were too slow.
Karen said that A, B, and C, her clique, already submitted leave. The next day, the leave calendar showed this. In May, I checked Christmas leave calendar, put in my leave, and sure enough, got the same result. This annoyed me as I have a family that I wanted to take on holiday. I spoke to the cluster manager, also part of the clique, who said there was nothing I could do. Note, I had no leave taken in 2 years. January the following year, the clique was on holiday. We had a gastro outbreak across our facilities, so we were short-staffed. All available staff, including CEO, were covering shifts. I was rostered on with the CEO one shift. During the shift, he said to me, OP, you have a bit of leave accumulated. You should probably take some. Me, I put in 3 requests last year. All were rejected, as others apparently already applied for those dates. CEO, let's lock in your leave now. Me, okay, how about 4 weeks over Christmas? I filled out the form, CEO signed it off, he filled out the leave calendar, and put my application in Karen's office. I was on sleepover that night, so I took my application, photocopied it for myself, and replaced under the mountain of paperwork in her office, knowing she wouldn't see it for a few months. In March, I checked the leave calendar. I noticed my Christmas leave had disappeared, replaced with Karen, A, B, and C. I didn't say anything as I had a leave form with CEO's signature. Fast forward to October. Original house supervisor passed away. Acting supervisor was appointed permanent supervisor by the cluster manager with a mandatory 3-month probation. December comes around. First week of my leave. I get a call from Karen.
Where are you?
Me. On leave?
I didn't approve any leave. Get your butt to work now.
I come in. Karen chews me out, stating she didn't get an application form. Even if I submitted it, she would reject it.
As you should know by now, that we always take 2 weeks in December and January.
She wrote me up for insubordination. I worked that shift. When Karen left, I emailed the CEO, filling him in on what had happened. He called a meeting with me and Karen. CEO, what happened? Karen cutting me off.
OP took it upon himself to approve leave.
I wrote him up for skipping work. Me. Actually, I submitted leave in January while you were away.
No, you didn't.
CEO. Yes, he did. I approved it and added it to the leave calendar. Karen.
Oh, we already had 4 staff booked on leave.
CEO.
Show me the leave forms.
Karen.
I destroyed them.
Me, handing Karen my copy of my form signed by the CEO. CEO.
OP is on leave. I'm going to sun up and I'm investigating this situation. OP, my apologies. Go home. I'm extending your leave by an extra week.
I go home. I come in 4.5 weeks later to be told that Karen has lost her promotion. She is on thin ice. CEO found out that Karen has been rejecting leave requests. She shredded my request without looking past the date. She deleted my leave from the calendar. The CEO told Karen that this borders on fraud. The CEO also separated the clique to different houses. He changed the leave policy to state that he must sign off leave requests, in addition to house supervisor and cluster managers. He ensured that all staff had access to prime leave dates. Karen was fired 2 weeks later for failing audit requirements. Edit. To clarify why the CEO did grunt work, funding bodies stipulated that during day, 1 staff was required for every 2 clients. We were short-staffed across the board. There was lots of juggling staff. All staff employed with the company not on leave were working in-house, including CEO, cluster managers, administration. They were rostered on with qualified staff who took the lead. CEO had social worker qualifications, social work experience, but no support worker experience. It was an extreme situation that could see funding withdrawn. What would you do if Karen wouldn't let you take any of your leave? Let me know in the comments. Next we've got, I got mistaken for a Walmart employee at self-checkout. We've got crazy lady, we've got actual employee, and me. I apparently chose the wrong day to go to Walmart after work. Before I start, let me explain why there is no way this should have happened. I work in a kitchen. I was wearing black jeans with holes, a gray shirt with the name and logo of my work on it, steel-toe boots, a hat with a monster logo on it, and my ponytail sticking out, and my black sweater. My shirt and my pants were also dirty and had some food spills on them from, working in a kitchen all day. I got off work around 9 and decided I didn't want to cook when I got home, nor did I want to order food from my work. I eat there quite often, so I wasn't in the mood for it. So I made the grave mistake to go to Walmart. I went and picked out something that I could just throw in the oven when I got home, so I could clean up while I cooked. It was 9:30, 20-minute drive from Walmart to my job. By the time I got to self-checkout, I scanned my food and put it in the bag, but as I was doing so, someone stood in line behind me. No big deal. They're just waiting for their turn. Nope. Apparently, this lady thought I was an employee. As I began to walk away, she began to shout at me. My memory of the interaction may not be perfect. I was tired and very hungry. Karen.
Hey, where are you going?
Me. Huh?
Aren't you going to scan my stuff?
Why would I do that? At this point, I'm super confused and haven't quite figured out what was happening.
Because it's your job.
No, it's not. I don't work here. I thought, more hoped, that was the end of it, so I turned to walk away.
Liar! I watched you scan that.
She then pointed to the bag holding my food. Lady, this is the self-checkout. You scan and bag your own stuff.
No, I don't work here. I won't do your job for you. Stop being a lazy jerk and do your job.
Me, visibly upset now.
Look, lady, I don't work here. I did, however, just get off my actual job. I want to go home and eat. Leave me the heck alone.
I again turned to walk away, but this lady wasn't having it. She shoved her cart forward at me, which did hit me but didn't hurt me. At this point, my temper did get the better of me, and I shoved it right back at her. I'm a girl who's 17 and in high school, so I tend to lose my temper quite easy. The cart didn't hit her, but it hit the machines and made a super loud noise. This is when actual employee makes his glorious appearance into our story. As he approached, she was screaming something at me. I have no clue what. Actual employee.
Excuse me, ladies. What is going on here?
Your lazy employee is refusing to do her job.
Actual employee just kind of looked at me, then looked at her. Actual employee was wearing a blue shirt and yellow vest. I clearly was not. Actual employee also knows me because I am in there more than I'd like to admit sometimes. Employee.
She doesn't work here, ma'am.
What is it you need help with?
She does too. I watched her scan that.
She once again pointed at my food. This is the self-checkout, ma'am. That's what you do here. What is it that you're needed help with?
I just need my stuff scanned.
Actual employee, now realizing what the lady wanted. Ma'am, this is the self-checkout. You have to do it yourself. At this point, I felt I was no longer needed, so I tried for the third time to turn and leave. I did hear her shout something at me, but I didn't care to listen to what she said. I don't know what happened after I left, obviously, but good God, some people. It was a fairly short interaction, but still an annoying one. Edit. I do point out that I am 17, but I don't look 17. I get mistaken for early 20s a lot. I more included that as to say how quick I am to anger. Next we've got Entitled Home Ec Teacher Tries to Tell Student How to Cook Her Own Family's Recipe. Okay, so for context, I took a home economics course back when I was in 9th grade, so roughly in 2012. We had a teacher so entitled that she called herself the monarch of the classroom. She was a local pastor's wife who already had a pretty bad reputation, so her teaching at that school wasn't going to end well. We'll call her Karen for this story. Now the start. It was nearing the end of the semester, and our class was supposed to cook over a period of a week, taking a day for preparation for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert. My group was assigned to make a dinner entree and a dessert, so I offered to bring a recipe that my mama had for a traditional beef and pork burger that was mixed with bell peppers, sautéed onions, breadcrumbs, and an egg. My mama is a native Czech woman who was raised in Germany, so her style of cooking was different from others. I was so happy to bring the recipe and buy the ingredients for the dish with my allowance so I could just show how good German-style cooking can be. Now, enter Karen. For the combining ingredients part of the recipe, at least the meat combination part, she minded her own business, occasionally telling me to just wash my hands after touching the meat. Things were fine until I started adding the breadcrumbs, eggs, and vegetables into the meat. Karen.
What are you doing?
Me. I'm just making my mama's recipe for frikadellen, the name of the burger dish. Karen.
Why are you adding breadcrumbs?
For flavor.
And the eggs?
They're used to keep the meat together.
Where is your recipe card?
I don't have one. Mama showed me how to make it plenty of times.
Well, she should have written it down so I could read it.
Excuse me? At this point, I was a little baffled. We weren't told to bring recipe cards before this, so I assumed we were just working on our own accord. Karen was getting pretty upset.
You heard me. She should have written it down so I could read it.
Me. You never told us to bring recipes, only to make sure we knew what we wanted to do and to know the steps. This makes her fall silent for a moment, so I continue what I was doing. After I formed the meat into thick patties, I head to the stove to turn it on, put the pan on the heated front plate, then add the oil and bring the patties. Karen was hovering over me, and my other group members were now nowhere to be seen. I pay no mind to it, putting the patties onto the pan. Karen was having none of it.
You should let me cook those for you.
Sorry, but no. They have to be cooked until a specific...
Did I stutter?
I was dumbfounded by this, knowing well that the last thing I wanted was for this woman to take over. Me. I'm sorry, but no. This isn't your typical hamburger, and it needs to be cooked in a specific way. I know what I'm doing.
Clearly you don't. Now move!
No! We were both close to shouting at this point.
Don't talk back to me!
This is my mother's recipe. You have no right to take over cooking something that you don't know about.
This isn't a democracy, you know? This is a monarchy, and I'm the queen here.
Me. I'm not letting you touch this pan.
Do you want to get kicked out of my class and fail for the semester?
This caused the room to fall silent. I was livid at this point, but calmed my composure. Me. No. You have no right to do so, for I am doing nothing wrong. You want to cook my mother's recipe, which I'm not going to let you do. You can monitor me all you want, but I will not let you take over. This shut Karen up, causing her to leave the room temporarily. The rest of my group members come back, confused, but I had a pretty stern look on my face. I knew I had won that battle, but the war was only beginning. Lucky for me and the others, Karen didn't bother us again about it again, and we all passed our cooking week. This Karen was so entitled that, just because she was the pastor's wife, she thought she could control everything we did. She was a snake. Thankfully, I never had to take another class with her, but that didn't stop the occasional glare as we passed each other in the hall. I just hope that other students stand up to her in the future. So Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible.
Horrible? How dare you? These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through. Dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not. All right, guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
They're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me or Karen
What?
to record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never.
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will.